Oh, cat. I may need help with my.
Hello.
Oh, good. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I'm good, cat. Had them on backwards.
These
Oh,
really
that's
are
something
like
I do.
seances.
Here is the requisite cat.
Really are like seances.
I'm sure mine will jump in the screen sometime soon.
Hi, Mitch. I apologize for being a little slow opening up. My system, if I tried from my main computer to open it, that was fine, but I tried from my cell phone, which I often do. It said it was waiting for the host.
Oh, well then.
It only knows
naughty.
me on the computer, obviously. It's so picky. So we
Yeah,
have
you basically had to log in from a new device.
Yep. One that knew who I was. Because clearly my desktop doesn't recognize me.
Rude.
Yeah, really. How cold. How cold. Okay. Which section am I in? Too many books, too many sections. That's what it is.
One can never have too many books.
Okay, I have to agree with that.
Yes. Yes.
We have such a fun night coming up. Steve is just going to do some fun stuff for us. Do you guys drink mead?
Yes.
Whenever I can.
Absolutely.
Which isn't often, but yes.
I am
Whenever I
looking
can.
forward to learning how to make it.
Yes.
Jonah, where are you from?
Lionsdale.
Lionsdale or Lionsgate?
Lionsdale is an itty bitty little shire right next to Lionsgate.
Ah, next to Lionsgate. That's why I hadn't
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, I let's put it this way. I currently have 10 carboys full of mead sitting in my craft room.
Oh, when's the party?
Apparently, if you guys want to join the party sometime after September.
When they open up the borders, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that.
No, I'm mostly here to see if you have any new tips or tricks.
Well, Steve will be the pro on that one. Wilhelmina, where do you hail from?
Mordenvale, which is in Lockhart, so Australia.
Ooh.
How do I spell Moda? What's it?
Mordenvale. Mordenvale.
Thank you.
Now
And-
that's a commute.
Don't
Yeah,
you
thank
love
God for
Zoom?
Zoom. My wings are not that strong.
Ah, there is our guest, Steve.
Oh, hello.
We can't see you, but I see your name.
Oh, I have to turn on the camera. Just a second.
We're just going through welcoming and orienting where we're all from. Magda, you hail from?
I hail from the Shire of Clundara and Principality of the Mist and the Kingdom of the West. Planet Earth, I guess. Just going.
Seeing as we have somebody from Australia, I think you missed the continent in there.
True. Kingdom of the West. Well, what would the continent be in sort of known world speak?
Uh,
New
Australia.
World.
New World.
Oh, known
yeah,
world.
Yeah,
New
yeah.
World.
I don't know.
Or the Americas.
Okay, I'm going to sign out here for a second and try again.
Do
I'm
come
having trouble
back.
getting my camera synced.
Never good when your camera won't sync.
Yeah.
Can you take him out? Thank you.
Miriam.
Okay.
Hello.
Ooh. So Michelle, welcome.
Grandma.
Can you share where you are from?
No. Yes, so my name is Mikael Lamont Deschamps. I'm from the barony of Windmasters Hill in Aila'ntha, which is North Carolina.
Your voice was very quiet there. I almost didn't catch all of that. Thank you. This lady does the most beautiful, beautiful needlework. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I've shared a few of your posts on our local page.
Oh, good.
Oh, let's see. Miriam, would you share where you're from?
Hello, I'm Shire of Clundara, Kingdom or Principality of the Mist, Kingdom of the West, just like Magna.
And we have Luca. Are you? Oh, Luca's got his mic turned off, or her. Welcome.
Yeah, sorry. I have a lot
Ah.
of background noise here. I didn't want to disturb everyone. I'm from a Castle Rouge
You're cutting out really bad.
in North Shield.
North
Oh,
Shield.
wow,
Okay.
Northfield. Cool.
Thank you. Welcome to the group. Enga, can you share about yourself?
Greetings. I'm from Canton of Amargarod, Barony of Crossray from Trimaris.
Well, welcome.
So it's 10 o'clock right here, right now.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to come so late.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm loving the class because I have not tried doing mead yet. That's one of those things I didn't dabble into, but it's been on my list. So
Cool.
I'm glad that your class actually showed up. And I will probably shut off my camera because I still have to kind of wrap up some things for tomorrow for my kids for school and whatnot. So I'll be listening in, but then you just wouldn't see me. So I'll just shut it off, okay, when I disappear. All right.
All right. Well, thanks
Wonderful.
for joining.
So
Absolutely.
thank you for having me.
Katerina, will you share with yourself about where you are from and who your partner is?
Well, I'm wow, I mistyped there. We're from the Barony of Dragon's Lair in Western Ontier, which is kind of an area directly west of Seattle area. So on the west side of Puget Sound, and so that's.
And we've been making meads and melomels for a couple of years, but everyone does it differently, and we like to see how other people do it and get new ideas.
Oh, the pressure's on.
So I caught one name. We have Katerina. Second name?
It's easier to just say Hugh.
All right, you. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Sean, welcome. That would be Sean Lorenzo. Where are you from? Maybe I didn't give him time to log in yet completely. I see the mic's still off.
Sorry, I usually mute on my headset, not through the app, so I was double muted. I'm from Glendoofin, and I've been dabbling in mead for a couple of years now. Mostly just really simple sack meads, and I'm enjoying the process, so I'm hoping to learn a little bit more today.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Elizabeth Roper, where do you hail from?
Hello, I am from Clundara, San Francisco.
Good representation from your group here tonight.
We're invading. We canceled our own A&S and we're just stealing yours.
We have a new
Technically,
event
it's-
coming up. There will be a war.
Technically, it's a pub crawl, people. Take the Australian example. It's just a pub crawl.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't offer samples or anything.
We'll use our imagination.
Right.
We accept postage and gifts.
Exactly.
Tolene of Arundel.
Arundel. Talina, you there?
I'm here. How you doing, Steve?
Doing good. Talina and I are in the same household from Caid, so we've known each other since like God was a small boy.
Way too long.
Are you still in Caid then, Tolene?
She's actually in Ontario.
No, I just
Okay.
relocated about 6 months ago to Three Mountains in Ontario.
Thank you for clarifying that for my simple brain. Sometimes I'm slow, and I admit it. We have Joanne. Joanne, you're muted, but can you unmute and tell us where you hail from? From Michelle, I am Alvajast. It is a fun canton. Okay. Thank you. I'm trying to keep a little quick record here and I'm slow, so I'm going to learn how to spell that. Esther, welcome. Glad to have you here tonight. Are you able to join us auditorially?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long I'll make it. I'm going to be called away to help unload groceries soon, but I
Good
thought
to
I'd
have you here.
at least start the party.
And Esther is from Adiantum. And we have Halima. Can you tell us where you are from?
I'm from the Shire of Heartwood in the Kingdom of Ontario. That's the Principality of Tiri.
Thank you. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. I think I have some others I have missed. There we go. Oh, lots of us. Etienne, welcome. Introduce yourself and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Etienne. I'm up in the Barony of Three Mountains, just a little bit north of y'all down there.
Let's see, who else do we have here? Did I get Marianne? I did not.
You did not. I'm Marianne. I'm from Avacall, so up in Canada.
Thank you for joining us. Good to have you here.
Well, thank you for letting all of us from everywhere attend.
I love that this, it's a pain that we have to do Zoom meetings, but how wonderful that we get to meet so many people from so many places.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for just a little aside, for several years, about the last 6 or 7 years that I was living in Caid, I was head of a what we call it the Historians Guild, where basically every month somebody would do a class or a presentation on history or something like that, and try to cover all of the arts and sciences areas that weren't really addressed by other guilds. And we were, meeting in person at that time, obviously, and there was a lot of interest in in people, more distant people attending and participating, but we couldn't really get the technology to work, and not everybody could kind of sync up and all of that. Well, I think one really amazing thing to come out of this tragedy of the last year and a half or so is that everybody's really gotten up to speed on the on the net meeting business, to the point where now we have people from Canada and from Florida and the West,
Australia,
and Australia and North Shield, and it's mind-boggling.
I think it's wonderful. How about Troy? Troy Mole? Where are you from?
Hi, sorry. I was eating soup. I just moved recently from Kaid to Antir to the barony of Adiantum, I think is how you pronounce
Adiantum.
Adiantum. Yeah, so we just got set up here, my wife and I, and looking forward to eventually meeting people in person.
Wonderful to have you here.
I think that's coming soon.
Knock on wood, knock on wood. Okay, let's see. Anya, will you introduce yourself?
I'm Anya Snehova Yavarnitsa. I live out on the coast, pretty much right opposite Cordoval. I'm amazed that my computer is working, or my camera is working, because it wasn't before. I've had a very frustrating evening trying to get it to work.
Well, we're glad that it's
I'm doing
working.
a class on marzipan. Yeah, I'm doing a class on marzipan for the Three Mountains Ethereal Court. And we tried to set something up back in the workroom so I could actually show people what I was doing. That was a mistake.
Oh no.
Anyway.
It'll come together. Just have patience.
It will.
Brynjar, would you introduce yourself and where you hail from, for those who don't know?
Sorry. Brynjar Olfus, hail from Adiantum. Been fermenting stuff for 4 or 5 years. Last 4 years, roughly, been doing all kinds of melomels. And so this kind of piques my interest.
You're probably way advanced to where I'm going tonight, but glad to have you here.
Any information is good information. The key to coming into a class like this is to look for those things you didn't know.
Right.
I think I've got everyone. If I didn't, holler.
Oh, I just saw Alan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alan's popping in.
Alan just popped in.
Are you set up enough to introduce yourself and where you hail from, Mighty Alan?
There's no Mighty Alan here, but I am Alan Boyer, yeoman of Adiantum, and I'm attending this because I've got a 5-gallon bucket of honey that needs something to be done with.
Oh my gosh, I can help you with that, Alan.
Ooh, shiny.
Alan, in your hoodie there, you kind of look like a Jawa.
Look like
We're
a
a
what?
sand people.
Yeah, Jawa. Yeah, people call me Jawa all the time.
Well, we have
Alan got the same bucket I did, so it's wildflower honey.
Ooh.
Where are you guys getting these magic buckets?
There's an interesting story behind that. There is a what do you call a person who raises bees and a beekeeper? An aviary? No, that's not right.
Apiist.
Apiary, apiist, or beekeeper, or beak if you're in the group.
Yes, well, there is a company, I'll just say a company that sells raw natural honey. And they have to bring it up to a certain temperature in order for it to be legally sold. But something went badly wrong and the honey was raised to a higher temperature. I mean, it affect the honey. It killed all of the natural little biomes that you find in raw honey.
It was
So all of the
pasteurized.
yeah. So it basically they pasteurized it without intending it. So they had a huge lot of honey that they couldn't sell to all their hippie friends who wanted the raw unpasteurized honey because they just pasteurized it. So they said, "Who wants this perfectly good honey that's been pasteurized?" I said, "Woo-hoo-hoo." They said,
Wow.
could you take about 40 gallons of it? I thought,
The amazing part is that was $100 for a 5-gallon bucket, about 60 pounds.
yes.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow.
So
Score. Good
That
friends to
ever
have.
happens again, give me a call.
yes, I've told them that they ever have any more pasteurizing problems that they shouldn't hesitate not for a minute.
I may have
So-
offered, possibly bribing one of their workers to accidentally pasteurize something, but I didn't
Yeah.
hear anything about it.
No.
So I drove all the way to Independence, Oregon, and loaded these 8 buckets into my pickup truck. And I was driving home thinking, dear God, I'm going to be stuck with 8 buckets of honey. But by the time I'd gotten from Eugene to Independence and back again, half of them had already been spoken for.
Great.
I am guilty of that.
Yeah, you took advantage of it.
Well, Steve, we've all introduced ourselves, but it's your night. You are in
Okay.
charge of this meeting. I believe everything's set up to facilitate you in screen sharing if you want.
All right,
And-
yes, I will be screen sharing.
And I'm going to encourage us to turn off our mics when we're not talking because that limits the feedback and overload system. So I'm going to turn this evening over to Stephen for now. And I really thank you for being here. This is exciting.
right.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for asking. I haven't done a presentation on mead in a while, so this was kind of fun. And actually, it prompted me to set up a couple new batches so that I could document them and get some photographs for presentation purposes. So, hi everybody. Wow, I'm humbled by the number of people signing in and the distances that all of these electrons are traveling to hear my talk. This is pretty cool. So, my name is Steve Alter. It says Steven there. If you look for me on Facebook, I'm there as Steve, S-T-E-V-E. So I will offer to anyone, if you have any questions after this, if either contact me through the Barony or just contact me directly on Facebook, I'm more than happy to answer questions. My name in the SCA, I'm Hrodr Navar. I've played in the SCA since around 1980. And almost all of that was in Kaid up until about 2.5 years ago. And my wife and I retired and we moved up to the Eugene, Oregon area, which is the Barony of Adiantum, which is where this signal is originating, but obviously it's reaching pretty far. So unfortunately, we were just starting to kind of get to know people locally and starting to get into the local SCA scene when everything shut down. So to me, the local SCA group is still kind of largely theoretical, but looking forward to shaking hands and meeting people in person again soon. I was a beekeeper in Southern California for about 5 years. One day I just had this wild idea. I've been doing some reading and I asked my wife, gee, what would you think of keeping bees in the backyard? Now, normally when I come up with these ideas, she shoots me down and, that's kind of expected. This time I was amazed when she said, wow, that would be kind of cool. So we actually kept bees in our backyard. And that gave me the opportunity to play with really fresh honey and to get to know honey really well. And that lasted and I got stung many times. It lasted until one random bee crawled up my leg and stung me and sent me to the hospital. So I don't keep bees anymore. Very sad, but I do make mead. And at first, my mead making, I was really hesitant to get into mead making because my background is I'm a chemist, and I have a lot of experience in microbiology and cell culture and sterile technique and all that good stuff. And I was intimidated by, okay, how do I do this without like poisoning people? You know, how do I grow microbes in my kitchen and not have all of these nasty things happen that I've seen in the laboratory? So I had to unlearn a lot of stuff before I could comfortably start brewing on my own. But once I found out how easy it is, and also how nice mead is to work with, it has happened pretty easily. If you've ever tried to brew beer, and I have, in my experience, beer is more difficult. You have to be a lot more careful about cleanliness when you're dealing with beer, because beer doesn't build up alcohol very quickly. And so if you're not extremely careful, keeping everything clean and keeping extraneous microorganisms out of your brew, then it's very easy for these unintended microorganisms to get established and to take over your fermentation, and things get really bad really fast. And if you've ever had like a skunked beer, buy a craft brew in a supermarket and open it up and taste it, and it's just really foul. Well, that means that basically something got into it. And all of the beer that I have tried to make and bottle has skunked in the bottle. So I haven't gotten the beer thing down yet. But mead is, to my mind, more forgiving because it builds up alcohol more quickly. So basically, yeah, you should be very careful at the beginning. You can sterilize things and get everything started, but then once it's going, it builds up enough alcohol to actually be its own disinfectant. And I have not had any batch of mead go bad. I've had some that are better than others, and I've never had one really get really nasty. And I just think that that's in part that's just due to the fact that you're with mead you're dealing with simple sugars. You're dealing with very the yeast are eating very simple sugars. They're not eating complex carbohydrates like they are in beer. So with beer, it takes them longer to chew through that stuff and turn it into alcohol. Where with mead, within a week, you've got a significant amount of alcohol in that brew. So anyway, for that and for some other reasons, I find mead to be really very easy to work with. Now, okay, so for getting into the presentation, if anybody has a question as I'm going along, feel free to unmute and jump in and ask the question. If you want to message in a question, I probably won't see it come up. So Bonnie, if you could keep an eye on the message board, and if someone messages in a question, then you bring it up into my face. So I can answer it.
I have something to add.
Okay.
Okay. Brynjar here. So I started fermenting with ales. I did do some groots, which a groot is an ale without hops. It's where they used spices instead. And then I got into meads. First thing is when I ferment my mead, I don't stop the fermentation. I let it ferment out at whatever alcohol level the yeast will still thrive in. But what I've found is that the sugars from the honey seem to be more complex than the sugars from the barley. So where I can get an ale fermented in a month and a half, it takes a good 9 months to really get a mead to ferment out where it doesn't carbonate the bottle when I bottle it. And that's just information for our viewers as well, to give some comparison.
Yeah. Also, that's going to have a lot to do with what kind of yeast you're using too. The yeast that I generally use, I'll go over that, is a champagne yeast, and it will go up to like 10 to 11% alcohol. A lot of the beer yeasts cut out earlier than that, so they won't. So if basically, if you don't know, alcohol is a byproduct of the yeast feeding on sugar, and it's actually a toxic byproduct to them. So the yeast will continue eating sugar. If you give them enough sugar, they'll eat sugar until they produce enough alcohol to shut themselves down. And technically speaking, that's when your fermentation is done. So different strains of yeast can tolerate different levels of alcohol. So if you have a strain of yeast that can only tolerate up to 6% alcohol, then that's where it's going to shut down, and you'll probably reach that level of alcohol relatively sooner than you will reach a level of 11 to 12% alcohol for a different yeast. So I'll mention the thing about yeast as well. I'll get into that.
Quick question.
Yes.
I'm curious about the strain of yeast you use.
Okay.
Which one is it?
Okay. Well, I'll cover that later. But what I use, it's Lalvin, Lalvin is the brand name, and the strain that I use is D47. It's readily available. You can get it in any reputable homebrew store should have it. You can get it online. Comes in little packets. Maybe about a teaspoon of dry yeast in a packet.
Thank you.
Keeps in the refrigerator really well. One thing I'm going to mention is there are so many different varieties of yeast that you could use. My recommendation is try one and work with it. Stick to one type of yeast for a while and get accustomed to the rest of the process. And then once you're comfortable with the rest of the process, then you have the opportunity to experiment. So that's my recommendation. So I started off with the D47 and had really good results with it, and that's pretty much been my go-to for most of what I do. A few times I've tried a few other strains, but that's what I usually come back to. Okay, so I am going to try to share my presentation here. Okay, Bonnie, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Bonnie, you there?
I am here. I am here.
Let me share my screen, please.
I'm working on it. It was supposed
okay.
to be prearranged. I apologize.
Also, I will say I've written up a handout to go along with this, which basically just kind of puts down in words, hopefully more words than what I'm going to spew here, just my thoughts on some of these issues. So if, I'll modify it based on any questions that I get, and then I'll post it on the Baronial page where this talk was advertised.
Okay, Steve, check that.
Okay. Ah, yes, there it goes.
Yay.
Slideshow from the beginning. All right. Okay. So, again, this is mead making for beginners. Basically, going into this, I tried to imagine, okay, what were the questions that I had before I knew anything at all? And so, someone who's had experience may very well and probably had different experiences. But I'll try to do what I can to help you get started. I heard someone say that they've wanted to make mead for a long time, but never really got into it. Well, I want to try to make it easy for you to get started here. So first, what is mead? Mead is basically honey wine. With wine, we get the sugar from grapes. With mead, we just get the sugar from honey. And that's really basically what it is. I haven't gotten good enough to achieve this, but it's my feeling, my impression that you can achieve pretty much any flavor with mead that you can with wine. That you can really, I have had wine, or I've had mead that was like sicky sweet, like cough syrup, and people telling me that that's how it had to be. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Just because it's made from honey doesn't mean that it has to taste like raw honey. That's all part of the decision that the brewer makes. How much honey do you use? How long do you give it? What kind of yeast do you use? You can get sweet meads, you can get dry meads, and anything in between. So sugar and alcohol. We were talking a little bit about this earlier. The yeast eats the sugar and produces alcohol. That's really the whole thing about brewing. The alcohol is a toxic byproduct. So depending on your strain of yeast, eventually, if you let the fermentation go to completion, completion means that you've achieved a high enough alcohol content that you've basically killed your yeast. The yeast will definitely slow down as the sugar content decreases and the alcohol content increases. So it can actually take a long time. It can take years for the fermentation to actually completely cease. While, for all practical intents and purposes, it could be over, in 6 months to a year. So when we talk about sweet and dry, what we're really talking about is the balance of the remaining sugar and the amount of alcohol that's been produced. So a sweet wine, like a Rhine wine or Manischewitz is kind of the ultimate sweet wine. You make the decision to add a lot of sugar. And with wine, the commercial wines, they'll typically stop the fermentation. You can put antibiotics or antimicrobials into the wine that will stop the fermentation wherever you want it. So most commercial wines in the US actually have sulfites added to them. And that's primarily to stop the fermentation. One of the main reasons that I got into brewing mead is that the sulfites have a really unfortunate effect on my digestive system. So I can't drink commercial wines. So that's when I started making my own. Dry wine is basically a case where you have relatively little sugar left and higher alcohol. So you're getting that sharpness from the alcohol, and it's not balanced by sweetness from the sugar. So that's really all that's going on here. The amount of sugar and alcohol that you have in the drink when you drink it depends on how much sugar you put in it to start, how long you let it go, and what kind of yeast you're using. And it's not necessary to let the fermentation go to completion. You can stop it anywhere along the way. If the balance of sugar and alcohol is what you like at a particular point in time, then you go and drink it. And that's what is the difference between short and long mead. Short mead is intended to be drunk in 2 to 3 months, roughly, depending on how you set it up. So it's intended not to be allowed to go all the way to completion, but so that in 2 to 3 months, the balance of sugar and alcohol is going to be something that you like, whether that's sweet or dry or whatever. Long mead is intended to be drunk in the time frame of years. So in that case, you're designing your fermentation so that you have enough sugar that by the time the fermentation is like completely done and the yeast are all dead, that there's enough sugar left in the final product.
I bought from here.
Hi there. So with long mead, the trick is that you balance the amount of sugar that you start with so that there's enough sugar at the end that you like to drink it. And since it takes a couple of years,
I'm not very good at it. You have enough. Please. Look, thank you.
Since it takes a couple of years to get to completion like that, it can really be a while before you know whether you were successful. So brewing long mead is takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of trust and a lot of willpower. So what I'm going to be talking about here today is short mead. My feeling is that the easiest way to get started, to actually grow some yeast and make some alcohol and make something that you like, kind of requires that you be able to taste it sometime this year. If you have to wait for 2 or 3 years to find out whether you were successful or not, that makes it a little more difficult. So I'm going to talk about doing short mead, and you'll be able to decide whether you like it or not in a reasonable amount of time and be able to move ahead. Sanitation. I also mentioned this a little bit before. Certainly starting out, I would strongly recommend that you be careful with sanitizing your equipment. I know, there are people that experiment with wild yeasts in their mead. There was someone who was advertising a class on that for one of one of the Zoom sessions that's going on nationwide, and that's really cool. And that would be a really neat project. Personally, a little more adventurous than I care for, because I've done too much microbiology. But some basic sanitation is important, particularly when you're getting started, and also particularly if you're going to be bottling this stuff for long-term keeping. So, I would say definitely learn the basics of that. As I said, mead is more forgiving than beer, in that if you get everything started pretty clean, it'll stay pretty clean by the fact that it's building up alcohol. Most of the yeast strains that you're going to use have a higher alcohol tolerance than your average wild yeast or microbe. So basically, they'll be able to poison any competitors and help you get past that hurdle. So one thing that you need to be aware of, and I'll show a picture of a bottle of this later, there are typically iodine-based sterilizing chemicals that are used and specifically sold for use in brewing. The brand I use is called IOStar. I know there are at least 3 different brands, but they're all pretty much the same thing. Really easy to use. Depending on the instructions, you just measure out a bit of the concentrate and dump it into a gallon or 5 gallons of water. And then you just have to rinse your equipment with that. Let it sit for a few minutes, and that'll kill all the bugs on your stuff. And you can choose not to rinse it off when it's dilute. And you just have a film of this stuff on a bottle or something. It's safe to drink it, and it doesn't contribute any noticeable flavor. Or you can just rinse it off, and that's easy enough as well. So that's one of the main things that you need to get and be able to use when you're brewing. Get a container of that. Also an airlock, and I'll show a picture of one of those. If you haven't come across those before, it's just a little plastic contraption that basically plugs into a rubber stopper that you put on top of your jug, and it allows the gases, carbon dioxide produced during fermentation, to escape without allowing ambient air and yeast and stuff in. So just a very simple thing, costs a couple of bucks. You sterilize it in your iodine-based sanitation before using it. So very easy to use. Okay, so get into materials. Well, obviously, honey. The best would be what Brynjar and Alan were talking about earlier. If you can get buckets full of raw honey, that's great. Not all of us have the ability to get hold of that. You can keep your own bees. That's maybe a little going a little out of the way too. If you're just getting started and you just need to learn the process, I highly recommend the Costco Kirtland wildflower honey. It sells currently for less than $3 a pound. It's not terrific honey as honey goes, but it's clean. It comes from reputable beekeepers. Costco advertises that they only deal with North American beekeepers, and that's a potential issue if you find other really inexpensive honey in stores, and you can find really inexpensive honey, but really inexpensive honey might not necessarily all be honey from what we know of it. Basically, the U.S. Department of Agriculture allows a lot of things to be called honey that maybe shouldn't be. You can bulk up your honey with sugar water, for example. You can, and a lot of honey from other countries, particularly China. China's a real bad actor in this area. Other countries don't necessarily have the restrictions on pesticide use that we have here in the U.S. and also in the European Union. And so you can get some honey from other countries that have unrestricted use of pesticides. Can be a problem. Actually, it is currently illegal to import honey from China into the United States, but it still happens. So, so if you need inexpensive honey, I'd recommend the Costco. You can get it in 5-pound jars at less than $3 a pound. There is a beekeeper's supply store in Eugene called Glory Bee. And they used to operate a brick and mortar store, but I don't think they do anymore. So I'm not entirely sure how they provide their product, but they do an online mail order business. And from them, you can get a 40-pound bucket of honey at about $4 a pound, which is about the cheapest that you can find commercially available good honey. And that's the best that I know of. Occasionally you can find beekeepers advertising like in Craigslist who are trying to get rid of bulk honey. And you might be able to get it for as low as like $3 a pound, but you'll probably have to buy a 5-gallon bucket, which is about 60 pounds. If you can get it, that's great, and honey will last forever, so that will make a lot of mead for you. Okay, yeast. We talked about yeast earlier. There are a lot of different choices. There are yeasts that are called mead yeasts. There are champagne yeasts and all kinds of wine yeasts and et cetera, et cetera. My recommendation is just pick one and stick with it for a while, make several batches of mead, get comfortable with the process, and you can find all kinds of information online about different types of yeast and what alcohol they'll give you and what kind of different, the type of yeast you use can affect the flavor of the product. So, there is value in looking at different strains of yeast, but I wouldn't worry about that too much right now. Pick a good one. I found a good one. It's called Lalvin D47. I think I have a picture of a packet of it later. For water, definitely use well water or bottled spring water if you don't have well water available. Don't use chlorinated tap water because the chlorination is designed to kill bugs. So you don't want to start your yeast off in a bad situation. Other ingredients. So you can make straight mead, also called sack mead or show mead, which is basically just fermented honey. So it's honey, water, and yeast, and nothing beyond that. That's certainly the kind of the simplest. one thing that you should keep in mind, if you're going to go that route and not add any other, biologicals or organic ingredients, it's a really good idea to add yeast nutrients. You can buy yeast nutrients from homebrew stores, and it's like you put a teaspoon in per 5 gallons or something like that. Or another option, use the medieval route and just put a handful of raisins in your mead. By handful, I generally define that as about 20 raisins. I usually chop them up. If you do that, that'll give your yeast enough of the other nutrients that they don't get just from the honey. If you don't give them nutrients, some yeast strains can give you some really strange products. If you've ever had someone at a war hand you a bottle of mead and you taste it and it tastes like turpentine, there's a good chance that it's sack mead that wasn't given any nutrients, or it's possible that it's just way too young, that depending on how they were however they intended it to turn out, it's not there yet. Mead should not taste like turpentine. Other ingredients, you can put fruit in your mead, and that's most of what I've done. So I'll share with you my basic recipe for fruit-based meads, and I used it for a lot of different things: blackberry, strawberry, blueberry, mulberry, oranges, orange, lemon, kumquat. I've made kumquat mead. And it's really very versatile, and I've never had a bad batch. Then you can also add spices and herbs. I haven't really gotten into that much. Done a little bit of experimenting with ginger and a few other things. I will show you one recipe that has, well, an orange and also some spices in it. That's about as far as I've gone down that road. Needless to say, there are endless combinations of fruits and spices and herbs that you can play with. For equipment, I'm going to be talking about making mead in gallon jugs. That's smaller than what most people work with. If you look online, you'll find most recipes are based on 5-gallon jugs. 5-gallon jug, to my mind, you're talking about a rather large investment just in the honey itself, and just particularly when you're getting started, if you've got that kind of niggling worry in the back of your mind, gee, what if it turns out to be vinegar and I have to dump it down the sink? Well, 1 gallon of vinegar would be a whole lot easier to take than 5 gallons of vinegar. So I started out with 1-gallon batches, and I like it so much that that's most of what I do. I do have a couple 3-gallon carboys, and if I've got a recipe that's working well and I like it, I've made a couple larger batches. One thing that I find with mead is that the recipes scale up and down very well. So if you find a recipe online for 5 gallons of mead, write it down and just cut everything by down to 1/5 of the ingredients, and it'll probably work really well. And the same thing works for scaling back up again. If I do my my recipe is in 1 gallon and I like it, I can scale it up to 3 gallons very easily. Now, that also implies that you should take notes. Keep good notes of what you do. I'm a scientist by profession, so notes is what I do. I've got laboratory notebooks full of all of my mead experimentation, and so you know, definitely keep track of what you do, because you might want to do it again. And for other equipment, I mentioned the airlock. You'll probably need a funnel, maybe some spoons. The way I measure out my honey is by weight, so I've got a kitchen scale. Just so really pretty simple stuff. All right, so here's my first recipe to help you get started, and this is my kind of stripped down basic fruit short mead recipe. So the plan is to do this in a 1 gallon glass jug. I use 2 pounds of honey, half a packet of dry yeast. That's probably way overkill for the amount of yeast I'm putting in it, but I've not had very good luck with open packets of yeast storing in the refrigerator. So, you know, if you open a packet of yeast, you might as well use it, because they're not very expensive and they don't store very well. So clean spring water, I've got a well here, so our water out of the tap is usable as it is. 1 pound of fruit, or about a quart of juice. One thing I will point out, this is not rocket science. Okay, so these are estimates, and try it once. If you think that, you know, it would benefit from having more of the fruit flavor, then knock yourself out, add more fruit. If you want less, then add less. It just, you know. And then for materials, I use a 1 gallon jug, a funnel, an airlock, and my iodine disinfectant. So let's see, let me get that out of the way. All right, so step 1. I'm doing this with blackberry. We have lots of blackberries frozen away from last year, and we need to clean out the freezer before we start collecting them this year. So I thawed my blackberries and mashed them. I've got the little conical strainer thing that allows you to kind of press out the pulp and keep the seeds. So I did that and produced about a quart of juice. You can certainly throw the skin and seeds into the mix. That's another choice of your design. Adding the skin and seeds can add different flavors, just like in making wine. Whether or not they include the skins from the grape affects the quality and the taste of the wine. So for this one, I just choose to use the juice, and also particularly with blackberries. Blackberry seeds are kind of nasty, so I just don't like to deal with them. So I got rid of the seeds up front. So you can, if you choose to put the skin and the seeds into the boil, you can always strain them out at the end of the boil, or you can leave them in for your fermentation. All of those are design choices you can make. You may choose not to boil it. To my mind, this is part of the sterilization of the of your process, and the wild fruit coming into your fermentation can bring in some unwelcome guests. So I typically boil any fruit that's coming in from the outside. Boiling can change the flavor of your fruit, but it also increases the risk of contamination.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
How long do you boil it?
20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Next bullet point. So to the, so I had about a quart of juice. I added about a quart of water and boil it for 20 minutes. And that's plenty to kill, to kill pretty much everything. If you put your skins and seeds into the boil, you can strain them out at this point, or you can leave them in for the fermentation. Once you've boiled this, you want to cool it to basically warm. Just basically, you don't want to pour boiling liquid into a room temperature glass jug. I say this from personal experience. So you just cool it down to just so that it's warm. I add ice cubes, or you can just cover it and let it cool down naturally. While that's boiling, I sanitize my equipment. So here are a couple pictures on the left. This little thing here, that's the airlock. And that the rubber stopper is the right size to plug into the top of a glass jug. And if you haven't seen one of these little guys before, they're kind of cute. There's a stem going up through the center. Basically, you use this by pulling the cap off the top. There's a little piece inside that falls out. You fill it up with water up to this line here. Put the little piece back inside it, put the cap on it. Then when you plug that onto your jug for the fermentation, the gases escaping from your fermentation will bubble out through here and bubble out through the cap, but outside air cannot get in. It's a really ingenious little thing and costs a couple bucks. Not a big deal. But definitely a good thing to have. One problem I have had in the past is fruit flies. Really love to gather around fermenting jugs of stuff. And they get into the airlock, and like they have this maddening habit of being able to like swim through the water in the airlock. And so avoid that. You can avoid that by just filling the airlock with cheap vodka. Maybe a sad use of vodka, but it eliminates the problem of fruit flies invading your fermentation.
Suggestion?
Yeah.
Use some of your sanitizer. The stuff that you would be pouring down the drain after you finish using it. You can use it to fill your airlock.
That's an incredible idea. I had never thought of that. And avoids alcohol abuse by throwing away perfectly good vodka. Okay, great, thank you. I will remember that. So sanitizing your equipment. Oh, and this is the sanitizer that I use. The brand is IOStar. The brand doesn't really matter. There are several brands available. This brand is really cool because it gives you a little measuring device built into the bottle. And according to the instructions, a full thing here, I think that's one ounce, 1 liquid ounce, is enough for 5 gallons, which is way more than you need. And again, under the heading of this is not rocket science, I just kind of measure out a little bit, dump it into my gallon jug, fill it with water, as long as the diluted sanitizer is kind of a dark brown color, it's working. So I don't sweat the measurement there too much. After I sanitize the jug, I pour it out into a bowl and put my airlock and any spoons and funnel and stuff like that into the bowl and let that sit until I'm ready to use. If you're not ready to use it yet and your glass jug has sanitizer in it, but you're not ready to quite go forward yet, you can always just get a piece of clean tin foil aluminum foil wrap and just put that over the top of the jug, and that'll keep it clean. Do that in the laboratory all the time. And then just basically be aware that as you use stuff, don't touch a surface that's going to go into your mixture. If you do touch something that could potentially contaminate your mixture, just swish it around in the bowl full of sanitizer, and you're ready to go. So just be conscious of that. You don't really have to be obsessed with it. All right, so since I'm only dealing in 1 gallon batches, it's pretty simple to just weigh out my honey. So I have my sanitized funnel, and the sanitized funnel and the empty glass jar have been weighed and tared on my scale. And then I just pour in honey until I have enough. And again, close is fine. I'm aiming for 2 pounds. If I get 2 pounds and 2 ounces, I'm not going to sweat it. So you remember we had already boiled the juice, the blackberry juice. So I just then pour that boiled juice into the jug along with the honey. Fill it about halfway with water, and shake it to dissolve the honey. Add some yeast, and there's the packet of yeast right there. Costs a couple bucks, I think, per packet. Shake it to wet the yeast. And then I top it off with water up to about this point where the jug starts narrowing. So that's really, it's not really a full gallon at that point. It's like about 80% of a gallon. And I'll show you why I do that later. But the amount of honey that I'm using is kind of titrated to this amount of water. If I wanted to make a full gallon, I would add 2.2 pounds of honey. Also, you'll notice that I did not boil the honey. A lot of instructions will tell you to dissolve the honey in water and boil that to sanitize it. I did that at first, but honey itself is naturally a sanitizing agent. Raw honey will not go bad. It's a high enough sugar concentration that that stuff can't grow in it. So if you're working with good honey, then I typically do not boil the honey anymore, and I've never had any problems with it. That's another reason not to use cheap honey of unknown origin. You can buy some honey in supermarkets for $2.5 a pound, but if you don't know where it comes from, a lot of commercial honey makers will water down their product with sugar water. And if it's less than 18%, or if it's less than 20%, or if it's less than 80% sugar, or more than 20% water, then microorganisms can grow in it. So some of the really cheap honey that you buy in the store does not have enough sugar in it to be antimicrobial. And so you don't necessarily know what you're getting if you buy really cheap honey. That's why I recommend the Costco. It's the cheapest honey that I know of, where I have gotten assurances from the manufacturer that that their honey comes from reputable dealers and is not watered down, and et cetera, et cetera. So then once everything's mixed, you add the airlock. You just plug the airlock into the top of your jug, and you're ready to go. All right, by the next day, you should see signs of activity in your brew. You should see bubbles in the airlock. That's the carbon dioxide escaping. If it foams, or this was a batch of apple cider that's turning into apple mead. So there's a lot of pulp. There's a lot of pulp in that apple cider, and you can see it's kind of settling and doing weird stuff as it foams. That just basically means that it works. And people who have brewed a lot will know that typically when you first start a fermentation, when the yeast really first start going, you can get this kind of an eruption of foam. In beer making, it's called krausening. Particularly if you have fruit pulp in the mixture, then that gets caught up in the foam and it pushes up in your jug. So you can see the stain here. This was, the next morning that I checked this, so I had missed the eruption, but it left the stain on the jar there. If I had filled this up with water all the way up to the neck, then that foam would have come squirting out the top of the airlock. So that's why I only fill my jug to about 80%. Now I could certainly add a little bit more honey, and after this step is done, the fermentation is pretty under control and very well mannered. So I could just add more water to bring it up to here. So I could do that. I choose not to, but you can certainly do that and get an extra glass of mead out of your batch. So here, that one night, I started 3 batches of mead. And the whole thing took me about 2 hours to start up 3 batches of mead. So there, very happily sitting, my bathroom becomes the brewery. We've got open counter space, and just in case a disaster happens and the mead does come shooting out through the top of the jug, then it's easily cleanable. All right, so the next step is basically to ignore it for 2 to 3 months. One of the things I like about short mead is that I only have to wait for 2 or 3 months. With long mead, and I think I'll mention that in a few minutes, but with long mead, I would add a lot more sugar. I would add like twice as much honey if I intended for the mead to be drinkable in a year or 2 years or 3 years. So, it's going to be, even way too sweet in 6 months. So the nice thing about short mead is that you have a drinkable, pleasant product in 2 to 3 months, and basically in 2 to 3 months, taste it. By that time, you've generated enough alcohol that you're not really endangering the whole process by opening it up and pouring out a little bit. So, I just open it up and pour out a little bit into a shot glass or something and taste it. And hopefully, it may still taste a little sweet to you. Okay, great. Let it keep going. If you like it, drink it. If it's too dry, that means that you didn't add enough sugar to start with. So you can just add more sugar if you want to. If it's drier than you prefer to have it, mix up a little more honey and dump it in, and the yeast will pick it up from there. So as I say on the bottom there, my 1 gallon short meads basically generally don't last long enough to go into bottles. From regularly tasting it, 2 to 3 months is a long time to wait for something like this. And, so I kind of sneak a little taste here and a little taste there. And when it's good, when it's the way I like it, there's a kind of a window there. If I let it sit too long, then it's going to get drier. If it gets drier, that's fine. I can just add a little, back sweeten it with a little honey and let it go a little longer. And also, so, by the time I've tasted it several times and poured some off, there's generally not enough left to be worth bottling. So I'll usually pour it off into a bottle or a jug or something, and it'll be gone in a week or two. If I want to make some to bottle, then I'll move up to my 3-gallon carboys and make larger batches. And then from that, I can get several wine bottles full of mead that I can sock away. And then what do you do with the debris at the bottom of the jug? So after this stuff has been brewing, you saw in the picture earlier of the apple cider mead that I was brewing. There's a lot of apple pulp in there, and eventually, in 2 or 3 months, that stuff will settle, and you'll have a layer of pulp at the bottom of the jug. Most of the liquid in the jug should be pretty clear. It won't be sparkling clear, but it will be pretty clear. So that stuff at the bottom is going to be fruit pulp. It's also going to be dead yeast. Basically, in 2 to 3 months, you've gone through many generations of yeast, and they fall to the bottom, and their progeny eat them. But hey, if you go to a health food store, you have to pay money to buy dead yeast. So there's no harm in drinking it here. And even though it doesn't necessarily look terribly palatable, it kind of looks like mud. To my rather undiscerning palate, I've never really been able to notice any difference when I drink the dregs. So, rather than waste it, I just call it a health food drink. But if the appearance of drinking mud is a little too much for you, you can always put it through a coffee filter. And, just a simple conical coffee filter. The paper filter will plug up pretty quickly, and it'll run very slowly. So just pour it in and walk away from it. By the morning, you should have a glass of very clear mead, and which by that time is probably the end of your batch. So you can enjoy that and get ready to make your next batch. All right, so this is my next recipe. So I showed you the picture, and I talked about the apple cider mead that I was making. So apple mead is called cider. And actually, there are historical names for meads that you make with different starting materials. If you start with grapes, it's called Piment. If you start with mulberry, it's called morat. If you start with apple, it's called cider. Well, so we've been talking about making mead in glass jugs. Well, if you go into a brew store, home brew supply store, and buy a glass jug, you'll probably pay $7 or $8 for it. If you go into Whole Foods and buy a gallon jug of organic apple cider, you'll probably pay $7 or $8 for it. So this is how I built up my my supply of glass jugs. You just basically buy a jug of raw apple cider. I found the best stuff is at health food stores, so you pay a little more for it, but be sure it has no preservatives in it. If it has preservatives, then it's a non-starter. Nice thing about doing this is that even though it has no preservatives in it, if it's bottled, it practically certainly was pasteurized. So the jug and the apple cider are sterilized, even though there's no preservatives in it. So at that point, then, I wouldn't bother to boil the apple cider or to sterilize the jug. You're starting with a clean product. And then when you're all done, you have an empty glass jug for your next batch. So to do this, just basically get your gallon of raw cider, pour out 1 quart of it, and do something else with it. Into the jug, add 2 pounds of honey and your yeast. Shake it to dissolve the honey, put in the airlock, and put it away for 2 to 3 months. Easy peasy, kind of the easiest way that I know of to get started. Minimizes the sterilization business, and at the end it gives you a glass jug. One thing that you might try, you're going to be pouring out a quart of cider. Since you've got that packet of yeast, dump a little bit of that yeast into the cider. Now, the raw cider does not have a lot of sugar in it, so it's not going to go very far. And it'll take about 3 days for you to get some really nice, fizzy, hard cider. If you wait for 4 or 5 days, then you've got something that's kind of closer to rocket fuel. There's just not a lot of sugar in there, so the fermentation can't go on very long before it becomes unpalatable. But on day 3, you'll have a really nice little product. Actually, I've made this for Thanksgiving dinner for years, and it's kind of foolproof and it works out very nicely. So that's a good beginner recipe, and again, it leaves you with an empty gallon jug. So for show mead, or some people call it sack mead, it's really, I use basically the same recipe. It's just, as I mentioned, you will want to add some kind of nutrient to it. With the fruit-based meads, you're giving all of this fruit juice or raw fruit or whatever. The yeast have plenty of nutrient from the fruit, so that's not an issue at that point. In this case, you can kind of starve your yeast if you don't give them some other nutrients. So again, you can buy the yeast nutrient or just give them a bunch of raisins.
Do you sanitize the raisins?
Generally I don't. When I was going through this process, it occurred to me that, gee, that's kind of a hole in the process. But I generally have not and never had any problem. But it would be very easy just to take them and put them through the sanitizer, rinse them off or not before you dump them into the yeast or into the mixture. But yeah, I generally have not sanitize the raisins. But beyond that, it's the same process. And then Joe's Ancient Orange Mead is a go-to. I don't know, just about anybody who's brewed a lot of mead will have done this at one time or another. This was actually the first mead recipe that I ever followed when someone in Kaid showed me how to do this. It's practically foolproof, very easy, and comes out with just a really nice, tasty product. So again, this is scaled down to a gallon jug. Most of the recipes you'll find online are for 5 gallons. Again, 2 pounds of honey, a large orange just cut up. I have sterilized the skin of the orange, but I don't worry about the inside of it. Add a handful of raisins, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, allspice, whatever. Watch out for cloves. cloves can really bite you. One clove goes a long way in a jug of mead, so watch out for them. Add your yeast, top it off with water, and you're ready to go. Again, same process. Seal it up with the airlock and try it in 2 to 3 months. So, again, and I think that's the last one that I've got there. So if you want to, once you've gotten comfortable with the process and working with 1 gallon, you can get a larger container. You can go all the way up to 5 gallons if you want. I kind of like working with 3 gallons. It's less weight, and 3 gallons of mead is plenty enough to be dealing with at one time. If you want to move into long mead, then I use 4 pounds of honey per gallon. It's going to be going for a much longer time. You're going to be generating a lot more alcohol, and you need a lot more honey to make sure that by the time the fermentation is done, it's still sweet enough to be tasty. And again, tasty is by your definition. If you like really dry wines, then you might want to use a little less honey. If you're a fan of Manischewitz, you might want to use more. So with a long mead in 2 to 3 months, you would typically transfer the liquid, pour it off the dregs into another jug. That's generally called racking. You pour it off into another jug, put a clean airlock on it, and put it back in a closet and let it sit. Sometime later, basically you keep an eye on it, and when you really don't see any fermentation happening, you don't see any bubbles being generated, you can take the jug and swirl it, and you don't see a burst of bubbles coming out of it. It's probably still not done, but it's slowed down so much that it's should be safe to bottle it. So when you pour it off to bottle it, be very careful not to get any of the dregs into your bottles, because if the dregs will contain a lot more yeast than the liquid will. And if you bottle some of the dregs, those are the bottles that are more likely to explode, or at least be really surprising when you open them in 2 to 3 years. Also, one thing that I've learned is while you typically pour into wine bottle, 750 ml sized bottles, it's a good idea to also make some smaller bottles. Beer bottle sized or smaller, so that you can taste it along the way, so that you don't have to open one of your larger bottles and potentially contaminate it. Because gee, once you open it, you have to drink it, right? What a horrible thing. But if you have a number of smaller bottles, then you can try a few along the way and see how it's doing. And then basically put it away and keep your fingers crossed. Also, another recommendation that I have, particularly if you're using like cheap screw top wine bottles, which I don't necessarily recommend. Cheap screw top wine bottles are not designed to hold pressurized contents, so they're more likely to explode. So if you do put away some bottles, I would recommend putting them into cardboard boxes with cardboard separators. Like if you go to Costco and go down the spirits aisle, you can get empty vodka and rum boxes that have those nice heavy cardboard dividers. Get a couple of those. So that way, if one of your bottles explodes, it won't make all your other bottles explode. I had that happen one time. had like bunch of mead, 4 bottles of mead put away for 2 years, and out in the garage I hear this boom, 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 and 3 years worth of mead in a puddle on the floor. So so be careful, but also if you're going to do that, use good quality bottles. And then when you do finally open a bottle, open your first bottles carefully, because bottling a long mead, you're betting that you know how much fermentation is going to happen in the bottle during those, that remaining time. If more fermentation happens than you thought, then it could be very surprising when you open that bottle. And that is the end of my presentation.
Yay!
So as I said, I'll put a write-up on my discussion here on the Baronial website or Facebook site, and feel free to play with that and experiment. And if you have any questions, I certainly do not profess to be an expert at this. I've made enough that I'm pretty comfortable with a kind of a limited set of conditions. I haven't really gone beyond that much. But if I can add any advice, I would certainly be happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk. So any questions?
Not a question at the moment, but a side note.
Yeah.
If you're not allergic to sulfites and you want to guarantee that your bottles will not explode on you, sulfites are your friend.
Yes. And there's a product called Camden tablets. And actually, I mentioned these in the write-up. I kind of skipped over that on my notes here. Since I'm allergic to sulfite, I don't use them, so I can't really tell you how to use them. But it's would be really nice to, once you get a brew to a place where you want it, just put in a chemical and it freezes it there. And then you can bottle it safely and not have to worry about it. And that's great. It's just sulfites won't kill me. They just make me wish I was dead.
Uh-huh.
Just a quick note, there have been a lot of little comments with some suggestions on resources, etc., in the chat zone. Look at those now, because once we close this, those are lost.
Okay. Oh, wow. 60 chat messages. Okay.
Yeah. And I am recording this. I admit to being a novice for techie things, but I have a techie guru here who helps me with a lot of things. And I'm hoping to be able to provide a link to this recording with your permission, Steve, in our Arts and Sciences on the Ontier site, Adiantum site.
Let's see.
So it actually is possible to save the chat. If you're looking at it, the bottom right 3 dots, if you click that, you can then hit save chat. I don't know how it works. I just know that that can be done.
In the bottom right 3 chats. Well.
And then I have a question as well. On the slides, the days or months to ferment were not on any of the recipes. Is that going to be in the handout?
Oh, well, basically, I said this is designed to be ready to drink in 2 to 3 months. When I'm just doing a gallon batch, I usually don't bother to rack it in between. Just basically let it go for 2 or 3 months and then check it until it's ready to drink. So yeah, that's my timing. Your preferences rule, though. When I was drinking commercially available wine before I realized that it was making me sick, I preferred Rhine wines. I preferred kind of sweet, fruity wines. So that's kind of my my preference with mead as well. If you prefer drier wines, then let it go a little longer.
And if you don't want to disturb the lees on the bottom, you can make a high-tech wine thief out of your turkey baster. You basically just sanitize your turkey baster, pop off your airlock, put your turkey baster down, pull up a sample, put it in a little sample jar, put your airlock back on, and taste your little sample. And like you said, if it's too sweet, let it go longer. If it's not sweet enough, back sweeten it.
Yeah, and actually back sweetening mead was very common in period. You know, that was an everyday occurrence, and so you know, there's no downside to it. Basically, if the fermentation goes a little too far, just drop in some extra honey, and the yeast will take care of it. Kathy Douglas wrote in a comment, I've been told honey does not contain enough water for anything to grow in it. Actually, I've done some research on this. I've got an article in Complete Anachronist from, from Tournaments Illuminated from a couple years ago. I published an article on preserving fruit in honey, and that article contains a kind of an in-depth dive into the chemistry of honey and what honey does, how honey works, and how it can be used. So a lot of interesting stuff there. So if you're interested in following up on kind of the chemistry of honey, I offer that. If you want to get a copy of it, you can drop me a Facebook message. I'll send you the manuscript.
Steve has several publications. He is a regular contributor to Tournaments Illuminated, and is it 2 or 3 complete anachronists?
Just one complete anachronist so far. I'm working on another one. Complete Anachronist is a big project.
Yes, it's a book.
Yeah, Tournaments Illuminated articles are a few pages, and a Complete Anachronist is 60 pages. So it's basically it's a major commitment.
It's a book.
Yeah. So actually what I'm trying right now, I'm working on writing up what I have on beekeeping, medieval beekeeping. And so I'm structuring it to publish a few smaller articles in Tournaments Illuminated and then pull them all together and submit them to Complete Anachronist.
That is cool. Have you met Her Grace? You should have met Her Grace Eleanor de Bolton.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, delightful.
Okay,
person.
Cool. But I think that you know, the two of you, her gardening and your beekeeping.
Let's see. Yeah, someone mentioned why yeast, sweet mead yeast. Yeah, there are a number of different choices of yeast. I just say the Lalvin D47 just because that's the one that was that the person who taught me used, and I tried that and it worked, and I've had a lot of success with it, and so that's kind of my fallback.
The on-tier tends to prefer the EC 1118.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one too. It generates a higher alcohol content than the D47.
Yep, and CO2. It's a champagne yeast.
Yeah. Let's see. Freezing helps you get more juice out of your fruit. I didn't know that. My My blackberries were actually frozen. We had a bumper crop of blackberries last year, and so you know, we've still got a few
Welcome to
gallons of
Oregon.
blackberries in our freezer.
The ice crystals puncture the cell walls.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It's basically why we can't do human cryogenics.
Okay.
You get juice.
Yeah, basically you juice the human.
Ew. The more you know.
Different class entirely.
I've got
Oh,
a
okay.
bumper crop of raspberries
sure I
I'm
needed
gonna
that
try.
Yeah.
What about elderberries? I've got a couple of elderberry trees I have access to.
Elderberry should work. You know, if you do anything with elderberries, you should know that elderberries can be toxic.
Yeah, you have to be really
So
careful about
yeah,
which.
so do some reading up on that. But there are, you know, particularly if you've got a kind of a variety of elderberry that was raised for fruit production, it may have less of the offending substance in it than wild elderberries do.
Honestly, for something like that, I would probably purchase instead of pick
Mhm.
from someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So be careful with elderberries, but yes, you can definitely use them.
Our West Coast native red elderberries can in fact be toxic, but if you stick with the East Coast natives, Sambucus nigra, either the blue or black, they're not toxic, and you should, as long the berries themselves, so you should be fine with those.
The reds, it's the seeds, the stems, and the leaves that have most of the toxicity. So a clear juice that's been boiled a little bit is supposed to be safe, but I've never been brave enough to try it.
Yeah.
I would
Blackberries it
recommend
is.
straining. Yeah, I would recommend straining the seeds out before the boiling, because the boiling process will extract some of the toxins from those seeds.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing that you've ever heard or tasted that somebody's flavored mead with?
Well, probably the weirdest thing that I've used is kumquats. Just simply from the fact that most people don't have kumquats in large quantities. But when I was living in Kaid, we had a beautiful kumquat tree. One of the things that I really regretted moving out of that house was we had a fantastic kumquat tree and a fantastic lemon tree. And so, but you know, kumquats acted just like everything else.
Well, kumquat's flavor profile is kind of close to the more common medieval flavor profile, the bitterness and the sharpness to it. So I've used kumquats as substitutes in some dishes because it tasted more like a medieval orange than a modern orange.
Okay, that's good to know.
I had a strawberry jalapeno mead once. That was weird.
Oh, cool.
Oh dear God. Were you in Texas?
No.
You know, I am a fan of hot peppers. So someone handed me a chili beer one time. And I don't know, just having my gums bathed in capsaicin just was not a very pleasant experience. So yeah, so I just don't go there anymore.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of.
If you're going to use onions in your mead, caramelize them first, because they're too high in sulfur otherwise.
Ah,
Ooh,
okay,
good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like peppers either, but one of the best things I have ever eaten was candied jalapeno.
Yeah.
That would make an interesting mead.
Oh, it would. Yes, it would.
So I'm just leafing through the chat comments here. Someone mentioned crush it yourself apple juice. Actually, I picked up an antique apple cider press last year, And so, you know, I'd been sitting out in this barn for 30 years, and all the working parts were still working, just cleaned some rust off of it, and got it working, made some, and then one of the working parts broke. So I have to do some repairs on it, but it shouldn't be too bad. So I'll be able to make my own apple cider again this fall. And someone also mentioned the easy cap bottles. If you haven't seen them, if you're familiar with Grolsch beer, which are very popular among home brewers, basically, pretty much you buy Grolsch beer so that you drink the beer and then you have the bottle left over afterwards. So I've got a lot of those, and really that's what I use for bottling.
Are those the ceramic caps with the sort of
Yes.
steel wire lockdown?
Yeah,
I have
they have
a ton.
Yeah, they have a steel lockdown and a little washer on the ceramic cap. You
Yeah, a
can
little
buy-
washer and then a little ceramic cap. I
Yeah,
have a
Katarina
ton of
showed
those.
us.
We'll talk
Yeah.
later.
I don't know about the US, but in Canada, you can get those at the liquor store. The craft breweries use them.
Mhm. Yeah, there are some, you know, you can buy them filled with some things around here. There are some specialty, you know, juices and sodas that sell them. And also if you go to a thrift store like a Goodwill, you can usually buy several of them for a couple bucks a piece. And they're very nice. And if you go online, I know in eBay, you can get replacements for the little rubber stoppers. So if you get a really old one and the rubber stopper is all kind of dried and manky and such, it's easy enough to replace. So very highly recommended if you can get hold of them. They're very easy to use. They're also very easy if you're, you know, I mentioned when you bottle and put away a long mead, and you maybe not entirely sure how much fermentation has gone on in the intervening time, and you don't really know if it's going to explode in your face or not when you open it. With those easy cap bottles, you can kind of sneak it open. And if it goes, you close it real fast. And if it just goes, then you're good and you can go. And if it wants to explode on you, you can actually bleed it off. Just kind of open it up a little bit and kind of bleed off the pressure until it won't explode in your face. So they're really nice for that purpose too.
We use a really cheap refractometer that we got from Amazon to measure bricks, which is roughly your percentage sugar, to calculate alcohol and residual sugar, because we didn't want to waste that 100 mils that like people brewing large batches do, because we're turkey baster people in the gallon bottles. Carlo Rossi for the win. That was our first 2 batches. A couple of years ago, but you can, for about $15, you can calculate your initial sugar load and your residual sugar load at the end of fermentation, and you can know roughly
Predict if you're going to blow up.
Predict if you're going to blow up or not.
Yeah, I've gone that route. I've got a kind of a professional level refractometer. So I use that when I need to document when I'm going to enter enter a mead in a competition or something. But I generally don't use it for day-to-day stuff. I just I know what I like and I drink what I like, and I kind of know that it ends up about 9% alcohol, and that's good enough for me. Which is, a great thing, having retired from a career in science, for me to be able to back off enough to say, okay, there's something there that I choose not to measure. Someone mentioned you can use potassium sorbate instead of sulfites. I just haven't tried it. Basically, I've gone a long way without stopping the fermentation, so I just kind of let it.
Sorbate does not work as well on its own, neither do the sulfites. You have to use both in combination.
Yeah. Well, so sorbate is bacteriostatic, while sulfite is bactericidal. Basically, sorbate will stop it from reproducing. Sulfite will kill it outright. So you've still got live microbes when you use sorbate. So, yeah. And you know, again, in my professional life, we had to balance whether you're using a sorbate or something else to kill the bugs. I've generally, you know, retired from a career of killing microbes. So now I just let them do my work for me, and I drink them. Local tool libraries where you can borrow or rent cider presses. No, I don't know of any such thing. I see it was Esther put that out there. When I get mine working, you are certainly welcome to come over and use it to your heart's content, as long as we don't break it again. Yeah, once I got my cider press, I started paying attention to where all of the unattended apple trees are around the county. And I mean, oh, there's an amazing quantity of apples that drop and fall to the ground and rot every year. So I've got a little list of where, you know, all of the yards where there are apple trees that don't get picked. Someone asked where the handout is. I haven't posted it yet. I wanted to see what kind of questions I get, and if I need to address any additional things in my handout, I'll do that. And then I will post it on the Adiantum Facebook site. And I can also post it on the Principality of the Summits site. I know, Bonnie, you advertised this this talk on, I think, on the Three Mountains Baronial site. I'm not a member of that group.
I put it on 35 or 36 different group sites.
Holy crap.
You are famous.
Cool. All right. So yeah, so anyway, you know, feel free to distribute it as widely as you want. You know, like I say, I've published. I'm kind of used to having my name and my stuff out there, and I can take the slings and arrows from people who know more than I do. Okay, let's see. Oh, onions and mead boggles the mind. Yes.
Hey, my motto is, what's the weirdest thing I can put in my mead?
What's the weirdest thing you can put in your mead?
And one time the answer to the question was red onions. I had never heard of anyone trying to put red onions in a mead, so I put red onions in a mead.
Oh.
I mean, they pickle nicely, so I guess it makes sense.
No. Oh, no. As I said, caramel, if you're going to put onions in a mead, caramelize them first, get the sulfur out.
Okay.
Out with the sulfur, just like out. Otherwise, you end up with, something that smells like the sulfur piles on the Fraser River, and it's not drinkable. Like raw onions, bad in mead.
Good to know.
Yeah, good to know.
This group is a wealth of trivia.
Yes.
That's what I love about the SCA, you know. You get all of these people together that have very diverse interests. And the SCA is a cool group because it kind of, it allows for people of diverse interests to follow whatever it is that they want to do. And if they can do it in a even mildly medieval context, then you go with it. And I've had some of the most amazing conversations around campfires from all of the people who have all of their weird interests. So
Soon we'll have
that's what keeps me
campfires.
going.
I had a college professor, her favorite phrase fits this group well: weird and wonderful people.
Yeah.
And then you find the microbiologists.
Yeah, well, my background is actually biochemistry. I did some microbiology and tissue culture on the side on my way to doing biochemistry. Yeah, so we're kindred spirits.
I wanted to be a microbiologist when I grew up. Unfortunately, I failed the calculus, so I didn't go on to get my degree in it.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Math ruins all the fun sciences.
It does.
Well, you know, and having experienced more university time than is good for anybody, I've kind of come to the conclusion that what science you end up with depends on your tolerance for mathematics.
Mm.
You know, if you have like zero tolerance for calculus, then you're a biologist. If you have moderate tolerance for calculus, then you go into chemistry. That's me. If you're really good at it, you go into physics. And if you're like, you know, a complete math nerd, then you go into math and astrophysics.
As
I did art
somebody
history.
as somebody who brewed his own beer for years, I'll have to say I'm surprised at how easy this is. I mean, you don't have to sparge the grain, and if you're not boiling the honey, then pitching the yeast is very simple. With beer making, you have to get the vat hot enough to kill all the bugs, and then get it cool enough to put the yeast in it without getting it contaminated between point A and point B. That's always a challenge. And you always rack beer, so you'd always have to do a second bottling, which was another challenge. So compared to making beer, this seems to be a real walk in the park. It
is. I've brewed whole grain beer, and just the amount of infrastructure that you need to be able to brew whole grain beer is mind-boggling. And just keeping all of that stuff clean all the way through the process, and then some months later you open up your bottles and it all tastes like cabbage. So
yeah, I was surprised the temperature wasn't more important in the mead making process.
It's not really. From what I understand, if your fermentation is too warm, then you can get some off fermentation products. You can get some weird flavors. But I just do everything at normal room temperature. You know, as I said, my master bathroom is my distillery, is my brewery.
Not even the guest bathroom, the master bathroom. I see where your priorities are.
Well, I actually have more room in the master bathroom. We've got a lot of counter space in the master bath.
Yeast has a fairly wide temperature tolerance range. If I'm recalling correctly, it's fine from about 15 degrees Celsius to a little over 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is Fahrenheit, but that's basically a relatively cool room.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when I was working in a lab, we always assumed that by definition, room temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so if you let it sit in a hot garage, you might have problems. But for the most part, keep it in the bathroom or in a closet, and it does just fine.
Basements are the bomb, especially if you have one of those half concrete basements. Those are brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, when I when I was living in Southern California, during the summers, it would get a little too hot, and we didn't always want to run the air conditioner. On our back porch, when we first moved into the house, the back porch, just a redwood deck, had a redwood hot tub, old defunct redwood hot tub built into it. So one of the first things that I did was rip out the redwood hot tub and replace the deck. But there was this pit underneath the deck where the hot tub was. So when I decked it over, I put a door in the floor of the deck, and actually it ended up being a really nice little root cellar.
That's amazing.
And
Nice.
I did a lot of my fermentations just went into the pit back there. Also, it was great for threatening unruly children that came to visit.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate your taking the time to share this with us. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, as you probably guessed, I enjoyed talking, and this is fun stuff. I was amazed to find out how easy it is. As Ellen had said, I first started off trying to brew beer, and I was just running into all kinds of problems. Just being able to keep everything sufficiently clean is tough. And once I discovered how to make mead, and I've made a lot of mead, and really the only problem batches that I've had have been ones that have gone too far and gotten very, very dry, but you bring them back with, you add more honey to them and they go. I've never had a batch of mead that I had to throw away.
Wow.
Well, that speaks very highly of the process, because we've watched too many go awry in other departments.
And if you leave it exposed to oxygen too long and it turns into vinegar, don't throw it out. It's an excellent vinegar. Like, it does brilliantly for pickling things.
Vinegar is good for so many things. Not just pickles. Well, I've rather lost track of what our next event is going to be, so I apologize, but I'll be posting that soon. And hopefully we'll see a lot of you back then. I'm going to
Aren't we
post.
doing the meetup with Klundara?
Klundara has flexed a little bit. They've got other scheduling issues that came up, so we'll be talking about that. I don't know what date that's going to happen exactly.
Oh,
Yes.
see you at some
Mostly
point.
because we meet on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. Period. That's our
Right.
schedule, and y'all meet every other week. And since we're coming up in June on another 5 Tuesday month,
we are out of sync.
Out of sync again. So we're going to have to come up with something.
We may have a special get together outside of
Exactly.
our regular scheduling.
Yeah.
So we will be meeting and sharing a night with with these wonderful people from San Francisco. I'm not sure what date it is yet.
No worries.
Klundara, is that correct?
We're still getting
Klundara, yes.
If anybody who's present has something that they would like to share, to teach, or whatever, please let Bonnie know, so that we can expand our repertoire of teachers and classes.
And you can share your wisdom abroad.
Same thing for us. We always need more teachers.
Yeah, because we've all taught each other pretty much everything we know.
And that's one really cool thing about this this interface we've been forced into. For instance, July 6th, we're going to have good wife Michelle Almond de Champagne, Order of the Laurel, Order of the Pelican. I believe she's from Aila'ntha, and she's going to do a course on salt.
Nice.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And then on the 20th of July, our own Alan Boyer is going to do the Flemish bowstring. How to make one.
Cool.
And so we're chugging, just
Lots more coming up.
right. But if anybody has something they'd like to do, please let Bonnie know.
Yes, yes. And for tonight's fun stuff, we are going, as I said, I've recorded this, and while we've been chatting, I have discovered how to save that chat. Thank you. Was that ATN that offered that? Don't remember who offered that suggestion, but I have discovered how to save the chat. So I will be putting a link to both of those under this event on the Adiantum page. So if you found this link for tonight, all you have to do is go back to that event notice and go into the comments, and that's where you should find the chat as well as the video.
Thank you very much.
I'll see if I can post the handout in that same location.
All
That'd
right.
be awesome.
Probably should be able to.
Wonderful.
Thank you again, Steve. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
It's very cool to be talking to people from around the country.
The world.
Around the world.
Around the world. That's true. Sorry, Australia.
And Canada.
And Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, very neat. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for being here. Good
I'm
night.
going to copy the chats now. I'm not chasing anyone out, but I'm going to copy the chats now. So any comments that come after this point will not be saved.
Okay, now you can say what you were really thinking.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, folks, I'm going to sign out here. Again, thanks a lot. And
I did have one question though.
Sure.
Does it produce a usable barm? Like beer does. It has there is still some yeast present that you can use to start bread or start sourdough with. And I was wondering if
if you're doing a short mead and it hasn't gone to completion, then certainly you've got live yeast in the dregs there. I don't know about long mead. By the time you've gone all the way out to the end of the fermentation, I don't know what percentage of the yeast are actually dead.
Right.
Most of them certainly. If they're all dead or not, it might not be that useful. But certainly a short mead, you're stopping it in the middle of the process. So there's still a lot of live yeast in there.
okay. Because that would be fun to experiment with too.
Yep.
Say long mead probably is a lot more like kind of a traditional wine.
Yeah.
Longer
Right.
fermenting process.
Yes.
And I wouldn't expect much.
Right.
Much of that sort of use from winemaking. So yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So have fun and experiment.
Yes, thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much,
Good
Steve.
night. Thank you.
So
that was fun.
That was
That
fun.
was great. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Steve. My goodness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He is right that Joe's orange mead recipe, the recipe number 4. So I have made mead about 15 years, 20 years ago, maybe. That was the recipe. I recognize it.
How did it turn out?
It was pretty good. It was a little sweet. I have discovered I like dry meads and not sweet meads.
You know, you need to let it go a little longer, I guess.
That's right. But that was the only mead I tried. I've done cider a few times, and I have not had good luck with cider. I'd kind of given up. At one point, I tried to sell off. I've got a 5-gallon carboy and vapor locks and all of the stuff for doing, because I was doing a little bit of brewing, but then it sat in the garage for 20 years, and I'm like, I'm going to sell it. And I said, wait a minute. No, I'm not. I'm going to use it.
Well, as far as making cider, that part's easy. The actual crushing the fresh cider, and making it into hard cider just kind of seems to happen.
Right.
Yeah, you just leave it be.
Right. But when you intentionally make hard cider, the line between cider and vinegar is really thin. I've made some really great vinegars.
Well, there's nothing wrong with apple cider vinegar,
Well,
right?
no, I've used it. It's great, but
I know people who drink it.
Yeah. It's not what I wanted.
Not the taste you were going for.
Right.
But it's dry.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Sorry. Yes. Well, my head is a swim in mead. I'm thinking I have 3 bottles that I can, and I know where to get honey.
I've been going, where can I set the jugs to ferment?
Yeah, that's a challenge around here.
Plotting is happening. Yeah, I've got a half-gallon jug that I could probably start with.
That's not very much
Aerator.
mead.
No, it's not. It's not.
You need a bigger jug. More jugs.
More jugs. Yes.
So you did say it scales up down really, really easily. So just the first test batch.
Maybe it's like making marmalade. I make a lot of marmalade because I like to save the peels from my there's little tiny, very thin skinned oranges you can get now.
Oh yeah, the little satsumas.
Yeah, little satsumas or little, I forgot. They call them several different things.
Cuties or whatever.
Yeah.
Cuties.
They smell so good. And they taste that way when you make marmalade out of them. So when I eat them, I wash them and peel them and freeze the peel. And then when I've got enough to do a pot full, I make marmalade. Just little batches all year long. So good. So good. I think making mead might be like that. Sunday afternoon mead making.
And now I'm imagining me using those peels.
And we're back to the orange mead, aren't we?
Yes. I had a friend who did a clove mead, and oh my god! And I can just imagine orange clove.
Oh my!
Together.
Oh my!
Pomander mead.
Yeah, pomander mead.
Is that an aphrodisiac?
Isn't all mead really? Honestly,
yeah, really. Oh my! Oh my!
I haven't gone to check out. There's here in Portland. There's now a meadery, a pub house, a Norse themed pub house and meadery. They opened during the pandemic, and I haven't been there yet.
Oh, timing! Ugh.
Yeah, but you know they seem to be doing well enough that.
I think a fair number of people took up drinking during the pandemic. So.
You're probably right.
But I'm
and
really
those of
curious to
us who
check 'em
drank
out.
might have increased our intake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their menu is even Norse themed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God, don't let them serve lutefisk.
Yeah, they go a little. Yeah. So I'm part Scandinavian, and so my grandmother. I grew up with some of those traditional foods around. The smell of lutefisk would drive me out of the house during the holidays.
Oh God, yeah. Oh. My mom refused to make it. She's just like, we don't have to, so we're not going to. But here's some lefse.
Right. I stuck a link to the meadery in the chat.
Oh wow.
Oh, well, then I'm going to have to
I really
cancel that recording and make a new one.
I really want to do like an after revel there at some point. It seems like the perfect spot to go in garb.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Have you been there yet to know if it's got space for all of us?
Yeah, I don't think it's. I know where it's located. There was an old historic basement pub house in Southeast Portland that closed down. It was one of the oldest ones in Portland.
So 100 of us could probably cram in there easy.
Yeah. Yeah, not really.
Weapons on the counter.
No weapons on the table.
Bows and arrows off the table.
But I definitely want to go check it out. I got my shot number 2 yesterday, so
Yay.
it's like, oh, I got 2 weeks. 2 weeks I go, feel comfortable going and checking something out in person.
Yep. Oh, my chorus had our first in-person rehearsal.
Oh,
nice.
This past Saturday. Because enough of us were vaccinated plus 2 weeks.
Right.
To show up. We're just like
people.
Harmonics, sound. I mean, Jamulus is really good.
My son came to visit after a year, and it was so wonderful.
Oh,
I could hug him.
Yeah, my family's looking forward to. I promised when I bailed on coming down this last Christmas that 4th of July. So 4th of July, I'm headed down.
You'd better stop and say hello, ATN.
Well, we don't go that. She's not that far south anymore. She's up in Brownsville.
Okay, my son lives there. We could arrange something.
Oh, really? Oh, really? He's in Brownsville?
Tom lives in Brownsville, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. We could work something out.
Yeah.
This could happen.
So yeah, we're looking forward to some family time in.
Yep.
After a year and a half.
I'm looking forward to seeing my peeps again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. We were having so much fun having gatherings here at the house and doing so many crafty, wonderful things together, and then it all came to a screaming halt.
Yep. I am debating maybe end of June. I've thought about getting a small group together in the backyard to do some fabric block printing. Kind of have a small fabric block printing party.
That sounds
I want to try that.
Trying to get, because a lot of us locally that have blocks, so it's like, let's bring all the blocks together and then we can use each other's blocks.
Nice.
Yes.
Don't have to carve a new one.
Right.
I like the way you think.
So maybe end of June. We'll see if the backyard is ready.
Well, your postings on Facebook look pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
It's looking very nice.
Yeah.
If we have a backyard gathering here, you're all going to be chopping briars. That's a bit of an exaggeration.
Yard work, yay!
Yeah. the half of
unemployed for 11 months. I got a lot of yard work done.
Well, yeah, see, this is your, hey, do you need pelt work? Do it. Low pelt
Heavies
work.
here, hit this.
I need to contact the heavies.
We'll provide machete.
Yes.
Oh, I like this thought.
Get to swing something
Let me make a
sharp.
note.
Put those TikToks to work.
This is about just under an acre of lot. And the front 2/3 is nicely cleared. The back third used to be an orchard, and now it's just a briar patch with a few trees left. I think that's a great idea. We'll do A&S on the front half, and we'll let the heavies have the back half. Lots of room to practice back there once you're done working on your bell. Oh, yes, I like this. This has definite possibilities. You think I'm joking? I'm making notes.
Yeah.
Hey, two things at once. Come on.
Right.
5 years ago, the briars were so bad, they were up against the house and growing over the roof. I could not get out the back door.
Yikes.
My mom and sis had lived here, and they were not well. So 3 people came over with power clearing tools, and they cleared it. About 2/3 of it. And it's mostly remained cleared. You know, there's a few came up here and there, and we've managed to keep them at bay. So this has possibilities.
It took about 3 years. My backyard was pretty much surrounded by thick, tall blackberry stands.
Yeah.
You know, the icky Himalayan blackberries.
That's what these are.
Yeah. And it took about 3 years to get it cleared and gone.
Yep. The slow picking, though, that works.
Yeah, just digging out the root, all of the roots and rhizomes. That's what it took.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I got to solve some of the neighbors where it spread. If it figured out yet how to politely ask the couple next door if we can go back and clear the blackberries on their side of the fence.
Yeah, I have a neighbor asking me to do mine. Any chance we could work along the fence line there? Yep. Okay.
Kind of curious to see how I'm kind of really trying the first bit of gardening this year. So my pea plants are really tall, putting out lots of pretty light white flowers.
Ooh,
waiting for them to, turn into pods and turn into peas.
I tried planting some last year along the north side of our house. I thought there's a nice little raised bed along the side of the house. And I thought, well, that'd be nice. It's kind of shady there, and they'd probably grow all summer long. They wouldn't get cooked. Yeah, that didn't work. All of the local creatures came and got them.
So it sort of worked.
Yeah,
You just didn't get any.
Worked. Yeah, we
Right,
didn't get
yeah.
but a couple of handful of them.
Yeah,
got-
that's what happened.
Yeah. I've got security cameras on the outside of the house a couple of places. And I've really enjoyed seeing the local nightlife. We've had, I knew there were possums and raccoons. We have
Oh,
some
yeah.
really cute, fat, roly-poly raccoons here. The other night I saw the most adorable little red fox
Yeah.
checking out my front porch.
Yeah,
Did you
I'm
label
curious,
it so I can find it again?
curious to see what creatures go after my peas.
Yeah, around here, thank you, Kat. Around here, it's the squirrels. They like to munch on things and they like to dig things up.
Yep.
And then what they don't get, the snails and slugs like to go after. But those are now in a pretty good control level with the raccoons and possums. So I like our little ecosystem.
Well, these peas supposedly they're a soup pea, so they're a dry pea. So I was supposed to let it basically kind of die on the vine and then harvest by thrashing, basically.
Hmm.
So,
How-
great.
How dense
Medieval-
is your planting?
I planted them in a circle around a large tomato cage turned upside down.
That sounds pretty good.
So it's kind of dense. Got a couple of them. And then I'm also doing some old world garbanzo beans, which are the same way. You're supposed to let them die and then thresh out the beans.
Now, garbanzos would be fun to grow. I haven't done that yet.
This is the first time I've ever done garbanzo, so it's entirely new. But they're both medieval varieties, so I'm kind of curious to try them in some medieval recipes.
Yeah,
Where did
very.
you source medieval varieties of these?
A seed store that I got at another Zoom class about medieval gardening.
There you go.
I was looking to see if I have that right on top here.
We've got some really nice organic gardeners around the area. Like there's a place out east of town called Organic Redneck. It's a beautiful big, beautiful big commercial grower. And I'm a member of the Gleaners here. And so when we go to glean, sometimes we're allowed to pull them up because they want the field emptied. So, you get a whole plant and you can just take it home and replant it. And that's kind of nice.
I don't know where my link to the seed place went, but it is a place. The one I ordered from is actually located somewhere up in Washington State.
Bit of a go from here. Wouldn't
It
be
was
too
all
bad
mail
for
order.
you.
They just mailed it to me.
Oh,
I just ordered seeds. They weren't ridiculously expensive either.
well, that's nice.
That's nice, yeah.
Far
I'm
too
curious-
often.
Really curious about the peas because my understanding is that the modern pea that we eat is very sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been bred to be sweet compared to the old pea and the soup peas. They're really almost more of a bean than they are a pea.
Much closer to the original, huh?
Yeah, so I'm really
They're all
curious.
legumes, so yeah.
I'm really curious to see how things taste using the soup peas.
That's been, as we've experimented with the older recipes, it's been one of the things we're learning is when you remove the modern substitutions and do your best to use the original ingredient, the taste is so dramatically different.
Right. Right.
And not in a bad way, just different.
Well, that's even true in shorter generations. I mean,
sure.
I think of I had a good friend actually down when I was active in the Eugene area, Sister Madeline. She's passed away since, but she was talking about how as a little girl, they always, good Southern family always had their salt cured ham. Well, she got some salt cured ham and fixed it and invited me over to eat it.
Yeah.
Salt dried. It's literally a dried cure.
Yeah.
Almost like a dried pastrami or something.
Kind of, although you rehydrate it and then bake it and serve it like ham.
Right. You do
I
like
couldn't eat it. The salt burned my mouth. It was so salty.
Wow.
And I like salt. I mean,
It kind of reminds me of when we were up in Alaska, we worked in a fish processing plant. So every meal had fish.
Right.
And they did salt fish in every meal. We had salt fish in the scrambled eggs. We had salt fish in mac and cheese. It was everywhere. And you would think that you would soak these things and try to wash the salt off before you no, they didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Learned quickly that I don't care for salt fish.
Well, I mean, saltfish wouldn't be so bad if it were like in teeny enough quantities that it's like the salt source.
Yep.
Right.
But no.
I'm going to have to excuse myself a minute. I have a dog calling for an urgent door need. I'll be back.
Oh, yes, yes.
So yeah, I'm just curious what these peas are going to taste like.
Yeah, I got seeds this year from the MI gardener, Michigan guy who likes to do as heirloom as he can.
Right.
Because one of his fun things to do is try to find antique seeds.
Right.
And see if he can germinate them.
Right. I want to track down. I've got a space that I want to put an apple tree, but I want to find an apple tree that is as close to a period apple as I can get.
Yeah.
I have some apple recipes I'd like to try that are, of course, I want to see what they would taste like in period.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an apple once and I tried to save the seeds, but it didn't work.
Well, most modern apples are grafts, and their seeds will produce a crab apple.
Right. Yeah. Some sort of crab apple.
Right.
I couldn't really get them to germinate.
Yeah.
I know you're supposed to have them, like one of the recommendations is to put it in the back of the fridge for 6 months.
Right.
So that they can hibernate and then try it. And I think I left them in there too long.
Too long of a winter.
Too long of a winter. Winter came and it didn't go away because it was a fridge. And then by the time I tried to germinate them, it just nope. They were just like, yeah, you're funny. No.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of great recipes for crab apple stuff too, though, that I'd never thought to try anything with a crab apple. So a lot of people that have apple trees will plant a crab apple for pollination purposes.
Huh.
So like if you have a small yard, so apples like to have lots of different pollens for cross-pollination. So you'll have a couple different species, in the same yard. But if you don't have lots of apple trees in the neighborhood, you can plant a crabapple tree for the pollen to help your other trees, pollinate.
Okay, then. Wow.
When I checked here, the backyard where I'm at now backs up to 2 other backyards. And I think the neighbor on one side has 3 apple trees and a crab apple, so 4 in their backyard. And the other neighbor has 2. So I can put 1 apple tree and it'd be just fine.
It should be fine, yeah.
We get some blueberry boost, because blueberries are the same way. They like multiple plants to cross pollinate, and I added 2 this year, and the neighbors right behind me said, oh, they're one of their bushes that never gets berries has berries this year. So
Well then. It had happy new friends.
it did just on the other side of a chain link fence from it.
Oh, that's nothing.
That's nothing. Yeah.
So, and I need to check. I believe I saw a beehive up three houses down. I think one of our neighbors is beekeeping now. I need to check.
Or for you.
Yeah, I need to check with them for honey.
Uh-huh.
Well, just to have their bees pollinating you.
Oh yeah, no, the bees are great. And I've seen them out there. It's my little planter with strawberries in it. I was noticing that the bees were very busy on it the other day.
Nice.
Nice.
It's like, you go, do what you want. Do you need anything? I saw a meme actually, as a kid, you with bees, you're like, oh no, a bee, run. Now you're like, oh, can I get you anything? Do you want to borrow the car?
Let me make you a little tray of water with the most beautiful crystal beads to sit on. And
Right. Yeah.
I think I've seen that meme. I think there was one that continued and talked about like yellow jackets or wasps or something. Like, go to hell.
Yeah. Yeah, don't like those.
Think you imposter.
Well, and I've got some sort of bee. I'm not sure what kind it is. Its markings are, I need to Google a little bit. Its markings are a little different. Kind of has a really kind of iridescent blue front.
Ooh.
But my back patio is flagstones with flagstones with pea gravel, and I think they have a hive under the patio.
Oh.
That's not very convenient for you because they probably are not the Australian non-stinging type
Well,
bee.
these don't seem to be aggressive. They don't mind us on the patio. They just, kind of buzz in and fly down their little holes that appear, kind of mud holes that appear. They push the pea gravel out of the way between the stones and fly
That's
in
amazing.
and out.
That little tiny bug can move gravel.
I know.
Literally just saw a video on Facebook of 2 bees taking the top off a bottle of Aila'ntha. Like it must have just been sitting on top of the bottle, not screwed on. It's just 2 little bees.
Like seriously, a real video.
A real video.
Man, talk about a salesman's dream.
Like, okay, we knew they were smart, but wow.
You're talking about your strawberries, Etienne. For Mother's Day, I was given the most wonderful pot of strawberries. They're called, what are they called? Hula berries, I think. They're yellow berries. They look like strawberries, but they're yellow. And they're supposed to taste like pineapple when they're ripe. I can hardly wait for these berries to ripen.
Wow, yeah.
I don't know what kind of crossbreeding you do there, but
I don't know.
I'm really looking
Looks
forward
like
to
those
tasting
cotton candy grapes they sell at the store now.
them. Have you tasted those?
I haven't yet. No.
They're terribly sweet.
Well.
I don't think they taste like cotton candy, but then my taste buds are not right after COVID, so they're very sweet though.
I mean, that's all cotton candy really is sugar. So
Yeah, and sugar, yeah.
Yeah.
It just goes for the show. We continue to push our breeding into sweeter and sweeter and sweeter.
Yeah.
People like sweet.
Oh, which reminds me, I got some beets I need to cook up. Oh, yeah. Did I put them in? Oh, God. Okay, I'm not here.
Well, 9:30, huh?
That late. Wow. Yep. Time flew.
It
Yeah,
did.
but it was a good
did.
class.
Steve did a good job, and it was excellent company.
Agreed. And thank you again for letting us sort of invade. I mean, come visit.
You were specifically invited.
It's true. Thank you.
I just think it's a blast being able to meet all of you. I love this. Now I
Me
want
too.
big events where we can all have lots of money so we can travel and see each other in real.
Yes.
The travel is the tough part.
Yeah, traditionally on Tier West War is kind of the meeting of
North and South.
Of North and South.
I keep hearing so many good things about that. It's like, next year, I guess. They're not having it this year, so.
I love that event. I love the early morning when the mist is rolling in from the ocean over that little butte.
Right.
And it rolls down into the vale there. And all you can see is the tops of the tents and a few sleepy people wandering around with their cloaks wrapped tightly around them. It's beautiful.
Oh,
Occasional sheep bleating far off. I love it.
That site is really, I mean,
Does it have an emu?
I had been
We have a site, yeah, that's a sheep farm, but they have emus as well.
They have guard emus.
Yeah,
they really are the sheep's guardians. They
I believe it.
I don't remember any emus from the Ontario West War site.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Carry on.
Well, so Ontario West War had been kind of one of those things that didn't have a really good home for a lot of years in its early days.
Finding good sites is tough.
I would still go frequently, but often hated the sites. And when I came back, I took 10 or 15 years off, somewhere in there, 10 years, 12 years. I don't know. I took some years off and had just gotten active basically the year before COVID hit.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But I kept hearing good stuff about the Ontario West War site because I had sworn off of it. The last time I went there, the site was awful. The wind destroyed my tent. It was just awful. It was at a site somewhere in, I think that one was in Wairika.
I think that's right.
Anyway, it was awful. And so I swore I'm not going to go to Ontario West War. Everybody raved about this new site. So it's like, well, okay, we'll go. And I really did love the site.
Oh, good.
They didn't lie. Yay.
Yeah, no, they didn't. I know it's a great site. Scary if there were a tsunami, but
well, there's that.
It doesn't matter where you are. There's something.
Right.
Tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes.
Right. If there were an earthquake and a tsunami, this site would be really bad because it's kind of like this opening. It's a U that's facing the ocean.
So we'd become a bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it probably was at one point.
Probably. But it is a beautiful site.
Gets a little hot though. When the sun's really directly overhead, can be really warm.
It can be. But not like some of the inland sites that, some sites inland in the middle of summer are going to be hot. This is still kind of coastal. So even though it's hot, it's still
cools
kind of
off in the
coastal.
You still get the sea breeze and
A little bit, yeah.
I went to an event in Eastern Oregon a couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago. It was miserable. They had a beautiful little park, but it was miserable.
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
like,
that's-
let's go to
that's
the
mis-
desert and pretend
Excuse
we're
we don't like
medieval.
it when it's too hot.
Yeah. I remember an event. Yeah, it might have been either early or late summer in Klamath Falls, where it was triple digits during the day, but you'd have to break the ice on the water to make your morning coffee.
Ooh.
Desert, huh?
That's quite a swing.
Yeah. It's a high elevation there. K Falls is up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. When you go to an event late summer, early fall, it's really a toss up. And it can go either way.
Yep.
Yeah. And in Windmasters Hill, where I used to play, we have an event called the Emir in February. And it's a sleepover, and you know,
outside.
Yeah. Oh no, you've got the. Well, okay. When I went, we had a campsite with cabins.
Open sided.
No, actually, they had doors.
Oh, good.
They had doors, but you know, no
Fireplaces?
heating. Huh?
No heat, no fireplace.
No.
Oh.
Yes. And everybody would like wake up in the morning. They're all going, you know, are all seeing our breath. And
That's a little too
we're just
medieval.
like, guys, this is what happens when you name an event after a frost giant.
Did you expect?
Toyota. Oh, that's funny.
I mean, I know it's North Carolina, and I know we don't usually get that cold, but seriously, dudes. You true named the freaking event, and yes. Oh, I miss it though. It was fun. You know, you got to wear all of your layers, which is not common in North
That's
Carolina.
true.
So it was kind of fun in that way, but yeah. Early morning on Merchants Row, coffee was very gratefully
Bestseller. Yeah.
Yeah.
The line stretches all the way down Merchants Row, right? I'm a firm believer in instant coffee when I go for weekend events. That way I don't have to go across the camp to get something hot to drink. I just turn on my little burner and
Yeah, I do a French
it's not
press.
the same, but it's hot.
I do a French press. I found a stainless steel French press, and so that's my camp coffee.
Okay.
It's kind of a big one. It does two mugs at a time. So
I'm camping near you next time.
Yes, know who has the hot coffee in the morning. Very important.
yes, the first thing that goes on is that burner to heat the water that's set up the night before.
So it's ready to go. You just flip it
Oh, yeah.
on as soon as you wake up.
I'll even
Yeah.
bring you some freshly ground beans.
Ooh.
I've been
He knows
debating.
how to sweeten the deal.
I've been debating looking for one of those old percolator.
You know, we used to have one like that we took when I was with Rob. We always had one
Yeah.
of those old steel covered with ceramic percolators, old blue with the white dots. It
Oh, they're
worked.
anywhere? Yeah.
Oh, they
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'll bet you can still get one at Layman's.
I'll bet you can get one at the Goodwill
Probably.
thrift store. I'm cheap. I can't. It's my
Hey,
Scotch
if
blood.
it's at the thrift store, go there first. Why not?
Yeah.
Right.
But if you can't, I mean, if all else fails, go to the Amish. Just saying. Like we have in San Francisco a postage stamp of a backyard, all things considered. It's not big enough to have a lawnmower. Pretty much to mow the lawn, you
Just
can
walk
use
across
weed
it a couple times.
walk across it a couple times. Use a weed eater for the corners. But the missus wanted to have a scythe so that she wouldn't always have to run the electricity when she was doing it. She wouldn't always have to worry about, is it dry enough, because we do get fog at night. And so she's like, I need a scythe. And nobody had it. Nobody in the surrounding farm areas, nothing.
It's not a real common tool anymore.
Not a real common tool anymore. So she was like, that hardware store that I grew up with in Ohio, I'm going to see if they have it. And so she found their website, and sure enough, Layman's, which scythe do you want? You want this one? You want this one? You want this one?
Wow.
It's just like, yes.
It is kind of fun outside of Albany. So Albany has the Mennonites, large Mennonite settlements outside of Albany, but they have some kind of general stores that are very fascinating to visit, because it kind of crosses that,
right?
Not quite Amish, but many of the same.
Definitely geared, oriented to serve their requested items, huh?
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's kind of fascinating to visit their little stores sometimes.
I think that's part of why the greenhouses in that area are so much nicer than what you can find down here in Eugene.
Yeah, could be.
Their selection is just much nicer.
Yeah, a lot of that farm land out there is Amish.
Yep.
Or Amish farms. Or Mennonite farms, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got gardens, Nichols Garden and Nursery there in Albany.
Gosh.
They have some of the weird stuff. I actually need to visit them in the fall, because I want to get some saffron crocuses. They sell them.
Ooh.
And
Who
they
does?
only sell them in the fall. Nichols Garden and Nursery
Nichols.
in Millersburg there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a good night for information.
Oh, they sell lots of stuff. They're great. Speaking of nurseries with crazy selections, they're great.
They're on that little side road off of 99, aren't they?
Maybe, let's see. See, I haven't been there since I moved away from Albany.
I'll Google them.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you just go up, actually go like that road, was it Waverly Drive that you used to live on?
Yep.
Just keep going up that till you pass the pond there.
Yeah.
Hang a right. And then follow that as it loops around, and you're running parallel with the freeway.
Right.
And it's just there on the left in a red building after you've kind of gone parallel with the freeway for a little bit. I try to get there in a vehicle.
In Millersburg. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. I found them. Thank you, Etienne.
Yeah, no, they're great.
I wonder if squirrels eat saffron crocus.
Probably. Squirrels eat everything.
Well, we have squirrels with exquisite taste here.
Yeah, we're actually down some squirrels in my own yard.
Uh-oh.
Down to 2 or 3. So we have some red-tailed hawks in the neighborhood.
Uh-oh.
And I have directly witnessed about 4 times in the last year, as I've stepped out my front door. Like one time, the neighbor's driveway right across the street, I open the door and step out as a hawk has picked up a squirrel from her driveway and is flying off.
Poor squirrely.
Yeah, it's the cycle of life.
It is.
The hawk has to eat.
I don't know. I just recently learned that squirrels can live up to 20 years. And so the squirrels that live here could possibly be the same squirrels that my mom and dad hand fed. My sister taught them to take peanuts from her hand, and I'm sure that some of them are the same ones that I saw when I moved in here 5 years ago.
Right.
So I'm positive. I know these squirrels, and I don't want any hawk taking off with them.
Well, I kind of the same way. I've got one that so I throw peanuts to a family of crows that lives in my tree part of the year. But one of the squirrels has discovered that I'm the bearer of nuts as well. She comes in and gives me these great big watery eyes, begging for nuts. So, yep. So she gets handfuls of nuts as well. So, and I don't want to see her getting pulled away by the hawk, but I think some of her offspring have.
Oh.
I had been feeding our squirrels right close to the kitchen window on the top of our barbecue so that I could watch them because they're charming.
Right.
And we realized that the local rodents were finding them. So I moved them out further into the backyard on top of the picnic table. And if I wasn't fast enough, some of them would still come to the kitchen window and sit right outside the glass and look at me with their little hands up like,
Where's our snacks?
What's the matter? Did you forget me?
Did I do something wrong?
And those eyes, oh my gosh, those eyes.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. She does. She sits up on her hind feet with her little hands together, with these great big watery eyes.
Yeah,
it's like nuts.
Please, sir, could I have some more?
Yep.
Exactly. Mead for squirrels, yes. My brother doesn't get to hear your side because I'm wearing the headphones. So
right.
He walked down the hall and I had to fill him in. I have named my squirrels.
I have not. That's getting too attached. I have red-tailed hawks. They're likely to eat the squirrels, and coyotes that might eat the squirrels.
I would name those too, but it wouldn't be nice.
Yeah, in the city, having coyotes, it's just weird.
Yeah, they were here first.
They were.
Mm-hmm.
They were.
It's like
we
the
have
little
one down the street.
Yeah.
Like the little red fox that was on my front porch a few nights ago.
Yep. I was waiting for my lift one time after work, and the coyote just comes up the sidewalk, looks at me, kind of goes around, goes up the sidewalk.
I'll go over here.
Like, okay, bye. Right.
They're not wanting to mess with you. They want your cat food, dog food, small cats and rodents.
Right.
Right, exactly. They can have the rodents.
Yeah.
We have a lot of rabbits this year.
Didn't you just post a couple? Was it you that posted pictures of neighborhood rabbits?
I don't think I have. I haven't,
No?
I haven't captured any pictures of them. These are very wild rabbits.
I like bunnies, but I wouldn't want them in my garden.
Yeah, that's my concern about the peas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter lived in Eastern Oregon for a while over near Bend, and they were always trying to plant something that would be deer proof.
Right.
Yeah. So they were told daffodils. Deer won't eat the daffodils.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, that's a lie. And secondly, rabbits had no compunctions against eating daffodils.
Right. Well, I think I planted 3 dahlias and only one of them's coming up. I think the rabbits are eating the tops of the other 2.
Oh. You know,
these little fibrous twigs sticking up out of the ground where they
Oh, yeah.
If they need a little protection while they get big enough, you can always put a plastic milk jug over them with the bottom cut out, so it just sits over the top with the lid off, so it's got air ventilation. It'll protect them till they get at least 6 or 8 inches tall. And then it's a bigger feast for the bunnies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think I've got one that's been a burrow down under my front tree. Looks like what I think is a rabbit hole down.
Do you remember the bunny that Robert had when we lived in Albany?
Vaguely, yes.
Huge stinking rabbit.
Yeah.
His girlfriend gave him this little bunny. She said it's a mini lop. That rabbit was 24 pounds of rabbit.
That's a lot of rabbit.
So we moved him outside, gave him a dog house and a little fenced pen, and he was happy. He used to sit on top of the doghouse like Snoopy.
Snoopy.
Checked on him one day. We thought, oh gosh, something got the rabbit. He's gone. Maybe he jumped over his fence. Later that day, he was back. It was very bizarre. And this went on for a while. Then we discovered he had a warren dug underneath his doghouse.
Yep.
Poor little thing, raccoon got him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Scared him so bad. We rescued him and brought him in. And he didn't seem to be physically damaged too badly, but shock. And he was gone before morning. They're very sensitive creatures. He was a big bunny. His name was Grendel.
Yeah.
Good name for a big bunny.
Mm.
Monboggy and more bunny with great teeth. Sorry, I digressed.
I try not to digress when somebody was asking about elderberry. I'm like, That's your father's.
Nope, that went through my mind. I think most Canadians automatically go there.
Oh gosh, when that movie was still in theaters, we used to go as a group in garb to watch the movie in the theater. We were so nerdy. It was wonderful.
Well, the Green Knight is coming out soon. With Dev Patel.
And they might actually open theaters again, so.
Well, they have opened some theaters. Actually, the theater they just finished at Stonestown here in San Francisco is I believe opening this weekend.
Cool.
I think you're a little bit ahead of us. I think California did a better
Yeah.
job of.
Well, I think it's
getting
partially
control.
that Newsom's trying not to get ousted by
Right.
this recall thing, so
Right.
he's
Yeah.
pushing it a little faster than he originally planned.
Politics have a big impact.
Yeah, I have noticed Oregon is on the kind of the fast track now. Things are being pushed. It seems.
Yep.
But I don't know. I don't think like Brown is not up for re-election. She can't. So
I just closed my door. Sorry, diversions.
yeah.
Now, Brown, I don't think is up for re-election, but I think
can't
she'd
be,
like
yeah,
to go
she's-
out on the good side. Is she?
Right. It's term. There's the two-term
Term limit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think she'd like to go out on a good term and stay in good graces. So
Right.
Possibly get some other position somewhere.
Well, she
Yeah.
can run again in 4 years or
yeah, if
but
you take a gap.
take a gap, she could run again. But
But I know she's trying to avoid the negative politics.
yeah,
And it's ugly. It's ugly.
It's in general, it's ugly. I don't think for politicians of either side are going to have problems because this whole thing became politicized. It never should have. Never should have been politicized.
You know,
We can politicize anything.
Magda, Magda, maybe you're able to remember when polio was a big thing for us when we were little kids. It was the same thing. We had.
I've read stuff
You're
about
muted.
Oh,
No,
Magda's rude.
Yeah, my missus is on the line, so I was
Sorry.
she's getting ready to go to bed. So I was saying my good nights, and I still will in a moment, but I'll answer your question. I'm a little bit too young for the polio, but my sister isn't.
Yeah.
My older sister isn't. So I had tails.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
So-
was it's some scary stuff.
And it was
Yeah.
kind of the same thing, schools closed and they
Yep.
made sure everybody had to have their shots. And it was a big argument about whether the shots were safe or not. And oh my gosh, when you got the shot, it was such a big reaction. You had to have a little cup taped around your shoulder so that it would put a protective cup over the blister that arose from that shot. I mean, they were pretty intense.
Right.
And I mean, I grew up with kids who were damaged from polio.
My dad had polio.
Did he?
Yeah.
And what kind of lasting effect did it leave on him? Do you know?
Not a lot. He had some issue with one of his feet, one of his legs. I think one of his legs was maybe slightly shorter or something. There was but that was about it. It was a real mild.
Well, he was fortunate.
Yeah, real mild after effect. But
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same thing. They tried to politicize it. People argued about shouldn't close the schools and how dumb can you get? Kids are dying.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not new. It's just new to this generation.
Well, and you can read in the 1918, 1919, 1920, same stuff.
Yep.
You could just change the name, update the headline, and it would read the same.
Yep.
People are people.
And in that instance too, masks were an issue.
Yep.
Wear the mask, don't wear the mask.
Right.
It was the same thing.
Yeah.
So the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Pretty much.
And if we go back to the Middle Ages,
Right.
the clothing may have changed, but really people don't.
Yep. Well, I probably should call it a night.
Yeah, I'm getting little nudges from down the hall about things. So I don't have a husband anymore, but I still get nudges.
See, when I had a cat, my cat would tell me it was bedtime. No,
Yeah.
seriously.
Hey, it's time to lay down.
Hey, bed. Yep.
I get that from the dog, and he's 90 pounds of persistence.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Usually at 8:30, it's let's go. Whine, whine, whimper, whine, let's go. He won't go without me. He'll stand here and whine.
Yep. Yep.
I'm very fortunate. This time he's decided to sleep on the floor beside me, but that's a rare moment. It's usually a lot of whimpering and whining.
That makes a great silhouette of your con speaker pipes behind you.
Hadn't realized how I'd turned the camera there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's my halo.
Got a little pipe organ in the.
Little
That's
pipe
just my
organ in the
halo.
background.
If I turn my head this way. Be nice if I knew how
Oh
to
my God,
play
we're
it.
still recording.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I should have turned off the recording.
That's gonna make a big file.
Hey, anybody who can sit through 2 hours of this.
Yeah.
I know at this point.
Anybody who really decides to listen is going to shut it off after Steve. So
Yeah.
Most people, yeah.
I don't think we said anything.
Unless it's playing in the background and they're off doing something, they're like, "What is he still talking about?"
Tomatoes? What?
Tomatoes, peas, pipe organs.
On Boggy and War Bunnies?
Yeah. Drunk fathers.
I don't think we've insulted the king yet, so I think we're all right.
Okay, good.
I've been proofreading papers for my granddaughter, and she's a junior at U of O. Her major is archaeology with a second major in medieval studies. So you can imagine what she's reading. So she has me proofread her papers and she says, now, would you read this article and tell me if I'm understanding this right? I have learned so much stuff about somebody the bald and Louis the pious and people I've never heard of
The
before.
time before surnames. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my goodness, yes. And I've never been good with history. It's just not been my forte. Being in the
It's usually
SCA for
taught
me.
terribly.
Right.
Being in the SCA, I've avoided a lot of that. It's like clothing, food, arts. I can do that and not have to know a lot of history. I'm okay. Not anymore. I'm now much better educated than I was at 25.
Well,
And
and,
people
and
used to-
history is different. I mean, history, what we're taught is history, is names and dates and battles and crap. That's it. And history is so much more.
What she's learning, if they'd offered that when I was in college, I would have loved it. You know,
Sure.
it's things like studying the Carolingian period and the people and the interactions and the
Mhm.
politics, not just who fought which battle and won.
Mhm.
It's like they're talking about the intricacies of Peter the Bald and his family life, and that's fascinating. It's
Right.
not like the same old stuff that we had. My goodness. Things have improved.
Yes.
In
You'd
many
hope.
ways.
And I'm getting an education for nothing where she has to pay for it. Ha ha ha.
Two educations for the price of one.
That's right. That's right. With
You
three,
just don't
'cause
get
we
the fancy piece of paper afterwards.
well, you know, my walls are full. I don't have anywhere to hang it, so it's okay.
It's like my luck, I'll get another scroll.
Oh my God. I love you guys.
Aw.
We are weird and wonderful people indeed.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, whenever somebody asks me what I do in the SCA, it's like I hang out with really interesting people. That's what I'm here for, is
Yep.
all the interesting people.
Back in the 70s, the local newspaper, the Eugene Register Guard, did an article on the SCA here when we were just a wannabe shire. And they came and interviewed people. And I was not involved enough to want to be interviewed, but I was listening. And I can still remember being a little upset because one of the ladies said, "We have strong women and interesting men." I was never quite sure how to take that. Yeah, exactly.
I think she was just trying to turn the normal thing on its head, you know, but
Well, they printed it.
Well, that would have been what? That would be 70s, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mid
it was-
70s,
yeah.
early 70s, somewhere in there.
Like, I think I understand the sentiment of it is not bad.
Yeah. It's like interesting people, that's different, but strong women and interesting men. Okay.
Okay. Harmless historical nuts. That's all I know.
Yep.
We're boilerplate on our butts.
You know, I've listened to that so many times since you shared that.
Yes.
Did you get to hear that, Etienne?
I don't think so.
Miriam, I know you haven't heard it.
No, I didn't. I
I
didn't
haven't.
quite catch.
Okay.
You're gonna have to share the link again.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Okay, so Leslie Fish is one of our early bards of the West. I mean, of SCA.
Right. I know the name.
Yeah. I don't know if she's still with us. If so, it's out of sheer stubborn. I love this woman. I was blessed with her leading a bardic at Dragon Con in Atlanta on like my 22nd birthday. And so I got to hear the story of how the FBI came and investigated the Society for Creative Anarchism.
I've heard stuff about that. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And she told the tale, and then she told her song about it because she is one of the people that they pulled in for interviews.
Now, is this a true story or is this serious?
True story.
True story.
It's the Serious Steel is the name of the album. It's her SCA focused album. She did a Filk night and then she did an SCA night, and I went to both. And I was The Walking Dead the third day, but I was so happy.
It's funny. I went and got my vaccination was at the convention center here at the walk-in clinic.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there during the wait period thinking, and the next time I'm in here for Rose City Comic-Con.
Yes.
I have my ticket from when it was canceled.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm
bring
ready.
it on. Bring it on.
September.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the song that she wrote about it is, I think, did you share the link or am I going to do it?
Well, if they just Google Leslie Fish true story, that gets it. YouTube,
okay.
Leslie Fish true story.
I found her website.
Yeah.
Just go right
Now,
to
the
YouTube.
funny thing is she is a raging anarchist. So, new. That's why one of the last lines is, so we spread out a warning to realms far and near to give the impression for all the next year that we're just harmless historical nuts.
What did you say to search for?
What's that?
What did you say to search for, Leslie?
Leslie Fish true story.
True story. That's what I was looking for. There it is.
It should get you
Yep.
that image.
Yep. Let's see how this works with
Here.
It's the story of the first SCA event.
Oh, early.
Early, yes, early.
Because we didn't have a name for the first ones, but when we finally got a name that we had to put down for something or other, a little bit after that, it was advertised in the local college newspaper for the Society for Creative Anachronism. Only when they called it in, the person didn't know the word anachronism and put the only word they knew.
That was close.
Close
to them.
So
in their heads. And so it came, come to the meeting on campus of the Society for Creative Anarchism.
So I've heard this performed at Bardic at campfires. Simon, do you remember Simon, Bonnie?
Oh, yes.
Yes, he performed this one.
Good. Good. I'm glad it's being performed because I
Well, this was a long time ago, but I haven't heard it since coming back. But
oh, okay. Yeah, because a lot of people don't seem to know some of the older historical Bardic stuff.
Yeah.
I went to Bardic Wars and I asked people if they knew why, the story of how we got on the FBI list. Now just what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the SCA, like many things, what do they say? The first time is a novelty. The first year is a novelty. The second year is a tradition. The third year, it's always been done that way. The memory's short.
Yeah.
So I think you lose. It's a short memory.
Yeah.
I've
Could
noticed
be
that
that way.
like many of the the songs like in the Elfhill Times songbook. You know, the Auntie Rebellion, nobody knows that song anymore.
Well, we could bring that back. Magnus gonna have us singing with them. We
We're
can
still in
have
the
them
middle of the
come
Bardic War, right?
sing with us. Yeah.
Bardic War ended this last weekend.
Yeah.
Oh,
it
did
end.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't really following. So.
I just saw a posting that it was done.
We could have more wars.
Yeah.
But a lot of those songs that are really specific like that, like in the Elfhill Times songbook, none of it means anything anymore.
It's true.
To the newer generations.
Yeah.
It wasn't their SCA.
Yep. There's one in there about Thorgir's last battle.
Right.
Now, a lot of people know Thorgir still because he resurfaces periodically, and
Right.
he's kind of a monument. You know, he was one of the driving forces behind Eagles, and
Right.
so he's a part of Ontarian Adiantum history, but he's getting older too, and
Right.
nobody knows that. And it's a charming little song about him fighting a battle, because at that time fighting women was not a thing.
Right.
And he's always been such a gentleman. He didn't want to fight a woman, but that was the draw he got. And so there's this comical song about Thorgir's last battle and how then he was laid to rest on his shield in the dewy grass, and the punchline to it is that when they laid him down on the dewy grass, it was cold and wet. So with a mighty roar, he rose again. But that's a fun song for people who know Thorgir, especially fun for those who know the story behind it. But if you don't, it's like, eh.
Yeah. There's a lot of songs like that in the Elfhill Times songbook.
Edward the Bloody Bastard.
Yep.
Misha Kazimirovich Pomashyanov.
Huh?
Misha Kazimirovich Pomashyanov.
That's what you said. I heard that.
Yep.
Is this a Yiddish prayer?
Sounded like a name, I think.
Yes. In Aila'ntha, there is a bard by the name of Ethenwald Whistle.
Ethenwolf Whistle?
Ethenwald Whistle.
Okay.
And he does comedic songs, and some of it's folk, but most of it's his original tunes, and he does some serious stuff too. But he did this one song, because never ask a bard to write a song about you.
Uh-oh.
Literally asking for it.
Literally asking for it. And so our good friend Misha, he wanted a song.
Oh.
The only thing is, he didn't exactly expect the particular quality of his to be the focus of the song, because he snores like a buzzsaw.
Oh no.
And so Ethenwald wrote this song, and it's extremely catchy. Let me tell you all a tale about a man that I once knew, of all his nasty habits and the awful things he do. So please don't call me crazy, but this thing I sung is true. About Mikhail Kazimirovich Pomashyanov. And these tales of camping with Misha and
Oh my gosh.
and all of this. And so no shit, there we were, right? Like Ethenwald had it on his first CD.
Oh no.
And most of us have the CD. So yeah, he was here. So here's Misha. And he still has a fairly active mundane life as well. Young, strong, virile fellow.
Oh
right?
boy.
Yeah. He went to a party. And this one girl was asking, this really, really cute blonde lady, hubba. He's talking and they're chatting each other up and, getting to know each other. And she asks what he does. And he mentions that he does the SCA, and he starts to explain about the SCA. She's like, I know a little bit because my brother or my best friend or somebody she knew was also fairly active member. And so she was trying to put things together in her head. And she's like, and don't you guys like take different names, kind of based on your focus? And he says, yeah, we do. And she's like, cool. So what's yours? And he said, Misha. And she's like, wait, I know you. You snore.
His fame precedes him. Poor soul.
Whoops. Never have asked for that song.
Oh, dear Misha. We love our Misha. And we think, he really should have stuck with trying to flirt with that girl, but he was so embarrassed he didn't. She's like, no, she was a keeper. She was a keeper.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Bards and the SCA.
Well, I need to turn the lava here, do some more stuff, and go to bed.
Oh,
Yes,
it is
it's been
10:20.
half an hour at least. since
Yeah.
we talked about getting off.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like that event that you just don't want to end,
Yeah.
The long goodbyes.
Yep.
There
Long
will be
form
no
goodbye.
after revel for this event.
Right. This was the after revel.
That's right.
It's
That's
the
right.
after rebel. The after revel, the after revel, rabble rousers.
Yeah.
After
something like that.
rebel, rabble, razzers. Yes.
Yeah.
The rebellious after rebel, razzle. I think I should quit now. I should have quit before I started.
Oh, this has been a delight. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you. You and I will connect about music
Yes.
and dates. And
Definitely.
I think we'll just add a date to our event so we can join you at your event.
That would be awesome.
And I don't think anyone will object to an extra night of fun. If they do, they can just go elsewhere and we'll have fun with them.
Right, and we'll have fun.
Yes.
Exactly. And the invitation's open to come anytime you want anyway. So
Yeah, when things open up, we will see. Miriam, it was a pleasure
Right.
to meet you tonight.
You as well.
Do come back and hang out with us again.
I'll try and keep an eye on your page.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be more consistent about putting these notices out to the group. So
yeah. And,
Well,
and
I'm
even
sure,
when we open up more, we have a few members of our group who are housebound. So we're gonna try to work in remote components.
that's a great
Somehow,
idea.
anyway.
There's some
That is a great
discussion-
idea.
There's some discussion happening up here in Three Mountains about how to kind of do mixed.
Yeah.
Can we do kind of a mixed in-person and virtual presence? in
Yeah, we've
the
been
same
talking about that
space?
here. We're such a large barony that there are people who sometimes come to like an A&S night, but they have to travel too far. But if we keep doing the Zoom,
Well, you were already starting to do some of this because I've attended a number of your councils prior to
yes,
COVID.
yes,
'Cause your
councils were-
councils were being kind of broadcast.
Yep.
So you were already ahead of us on that.
If only we'd known.
Yeah.
But hey, we'll make it work. Somehow we'll
All right.
make it work.
Yes, we will.
So.
Onward.
Onward.
Good night.
See you folks in 2 weeks. Have a
probably
wonderful
not
evening.
in 2 weeks. I only get to come to every other one of your things.
I know, because you have something conflicting, huh?
Right. I've got too many other meetings.
Such a busy guy.
Well, one of them is the Three Mountains Perennial Council.
Okay, I'll give you that.
But I think it's actually the Organ Club meeting that conflicts. And I'm
Well,
the
you know.
secretary. I have to take notes. So
You better go. Yeah. Yeah, that's important.
Yep.
I've been running across, there's a group on Facebook called Forgotten Oregon. And have you seen it?
I haven't. I've belonged to similar groups for Portland.
Yeah, and they've been posting a lot of things about organ grinder and the big organs up in Portland, and
Yep.
made me think of you and Mom and good stuff.
Yep.
Well, have a good evening.
You too.
I always want to give him the wrong name. Give him a moment. Starts with a C, and it's not Columbus. It's Celtic. I know it's Celtic.
It's Scottish.
Well, it doesn't get much more Celtic than that. Tell that sweet guy I said hi, because I can't say his name.
Campbell, just think about the
Thank
soup.
you. Yeah, the Campbells are coming. Hurrah, hurrah. Tell him I said hi, Etienne.
Will do.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.